Welcome back to the channel. This is Trendy Storm and you are watching second and final part of What If Could Naruto Make Shadow Clone Siblings with help of Kyuubi. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share and subscribe to this channel. Now wasting no time, let's start the story.
After 5 years, 3 young shinobi moved slowly through Iwagakure's ruins. On their foreheads, their Kumo headbands shone with pride. An 11-year-old boy with orange hair tugs at the handle of his short sword, asking, "So, what are we supposed to do again?" "We're supposed to be looking for anything that can be salvaged and used. I suggest going to the Tsuchikage Tower," the child responds. "We'll be lucky if there's anything there. It has been 5 years after all," the final shinobi grunts. A second later, the girl bops him in the bald head. "Ikimu, stop being so negative all the time," she screams. "I was speaking the truth, stupid girl. So stop attacking me," Ikimu snarls. While looking around, the 3 cloud shinobi ascend to the Tsuchikage Tower. "Geez. Old craters, gigantic scorch marks. Look, skeletons, and are those claw marks?" After exchanging glances, Ikimu and the other boy head inside the tower. "Izuki, come on," exclaims the child with the orange hair. Despite glaring, the girl complies. They eventually entered the Tsuchikage office after climbing the stairs. The fact that the place had already been raided was obvious. There was a big hole in the wall that led out, and old scrolls and paper were scattered everywhere. They gasp as they step into the scroll room. It was packed. Izuki smiles and asks, "Well, who is the dumbass that broke in and left everything here?" With a shrug, Ikimu takes the closest scroll, which is labeled Basic Doden Justice, and tucks it into a pocket. They went deeper into the room, taking scrolls and copying down others that were too large to carry, and for what seemed like hours they collected Iwa's secrets. Izuki even found the forbidden scroll, though he thought it was in about 6 pieces, but the rakeage could fix that. "Guys, we hit the jackpot on this one," the orange-haired boy says, pocketing a few scrolls as well. "We'll return later," Ikimu remarks. "It's unbelievable that nobody arrived here sooner. It's most likely a result of how this place was demolished," the orange-haired child says. "They say that this place was killed by 4 demon children with glowing red chakra and strange abilities like manipulating metal and wings that shoot sharp feathers." "Inakuto, that is absurd," Izuki says. "I would stab you for making up such a ridiculous story if you weren't my brother." "Whatever," Inakuto says with a shrug before advancing a step. Hey, what the? Scrolls buried Inakuto as they fell after he was tripped by Izuki and fell into a shelf. "Goddamn you, girl," the boy yells. "I have idiots for siblings," as he glares and leaps out of the pile. Ikimu sighs. "Stop talking." Izuki tosses him a big scroll, but he easily catches it. He was about to toss it back, but stops when he sees a particular word. "Look at this, you two." He raises the scroll to reveal his siblings, and both Inakuto and Izuki give it a quick glance before raising an eyebrow. What is the past of the disloyal Uzumaki clan? The word, Uzumaki, sounds familiar. We've heard Sasuke, Sama and Hinata. Sama use it, Ikimu explains with a sigh. "Oh, you're correct. It's the last name of the man they're looking for right now," Inakuto says. "Exactly. Rakeage. Sama sent us here for that reason." According to Ikimu, Uzumaki was a notorious name in Iwa. With a smile, Izuki takes the scroll from her brother and opens it, saying, "Let's see what's so notorious about it." Inakuto and Ikimu lean over the girl's shoulders and start reading, but after about 5 minutes, they all gasp and Izuki drops the scroll, her eyes wide with surprise. I say this with excitement. Change of scene. They couldn't really say for sure how long they had been traveling, a month or a bit longer, but 5 figures stood close to the sea's edge. They had departed from their cave around that time. Shadow had been unrelenting, as had the other demons they trained with. They threw all of their skills into them. They were now watching as the far-off shape of a ship slowly approached them after tearing through forests, grassy plains, and rocky hills on their way to their destination. The midday sun was shining brightly on the endless expanse of salty, crystal clear water in front of them. They were 11 and 13. Strong preteens who have a claim to make. Something to accomplish. The blonde girl with a big war hammer in her left hand and a big scroll strapped to her back. The boy holding a pair of scythes had black hair with yellow streaks. One that had a crystal ball embedded in the blade close to the base, and the other that was composed of almost transparent, indestructible material, both of which glowed yellow, orange. The other girl, who wore a pair of metal gloves and a kunai, had transparent pink and gray hair. The tallest boy, with silvery gray hair that is tinged with yellow, and a ponytail at the back that resembles a fox's tail. His body was adorned with metal combat boots, thick wrist bangles, a chest plate, and a massive kunai on a chain. Not much clothing was visible because the four of them were wearing tattered cloaks. All four turned to look at the final boy. In front of them stood the boy. He appears to be the group's leader. His short, spiky yellow hair was blowing in the gentle breeze, and his arms were folded across his bare chest. He had two swords strapped across his back, and an X1 was crimson and shaped like a giant feather, while the other glowed orange. Yellow. He had heavy weights attached to his ankles and wrists that resembled large clock gears. They had gravity seals that glowed. He was dressed in loose, fitting orange trousers. Kyuubi asks, "So what are we gonna do once we get there?" Raven locks his fingers with hers and smiles. "We're gonna have some fun for once." Akira also grinned and remarked, "The sea, it looks so enchanting." Naturo just looks out at the water. "Come on, the ship's almost here." "Hi ni. San." The five preteens walked to a dock and waited there, before the ship that would transport them to Sea Country finally docked and everyone disembarked to go about their separate ways. They stood there for what felt like an eternity. The five wait until everyone has left before continuing, settling in and covering the cost of their journey. The actual cruise ship wasn't particularly opulent, but it wasn't awful either. The ship's moving mechanisms were indicated by 3 sails, 2 wooden masts, and literally hundreds of different ropes and ties. Around 30 crew members hustled around maintaining the ship's best condition and getting it ready for its next journey. This ship is also used to transport supplies from the mainland to the island out to sea, as indicated by the large storage room toward the back of the ship. The five take one last look around before making their way to a room. The cabin boy shouts, "Last call for passengers," from the crow's nest. They get ready to depart when nobody boards the ship. After a wind gust and a swivel of the sails, they're sailing out to sea. Without saying a single word to the others, Naruto sat and gazed up at the sky. He had made the decision to reflect on the previous 5 years spent with Shadow and the remaining summons from Akira. During the first year, they had learned from Hikirigakir's forbidden scroll and trained with weights. There was still a lot to discover, like the background of that long, forgotten community and the significance of the term, bloodline. Naruto lets out a sigh. Something told him there were many great secrets in the Hidden Light Village. He recalls seeing that passage in the Forbidden Scroll. He recalls finding out that Hikirigakir had been around until roughly 20 years ago, and he was fired up by that. Nobody has spoken out about a village that was destroyed by 7 other secret villages just 20 years ago. And how did bloodline limits relate to them? He wondered at the way the scroll kept bringing them up. Over the sound of the waves, Akira exclaims, "Hey ni. San. We're almost there." Naruto looks around after waking up. This was the longest he had been out of it. The sun had already begun to set. He sighs, hi, I'm coming," he says. Raven asks, "So where do you want to go first, Tayu-chan?" and gets a bop on the head in return. She blushes and yells, "Don't call me that," which makes the others laugh. Leaning over the ship's edge and looking down at the water, Akira smiles. Her personal recollections of the previous 5 years spent with Shadow. He had promised training with the demon, and it had been just that. Hell. It was made worse for everyone by the fact that her Baka brothers, Naruto and Raven, continued to taunt the fox. As Raven and Kyuubi held hands and gazed out to sea, she glared at his back. Akira asks, "Thinking about the last 5 years?" as she turns to face an emotionless Naturo. Another thing that evolved over time was that the clones' personalities were completely formed. Naturo was somewhat more aggressive than the others and was generally utterly emotionless and icy. Loud and cocky, Raven was as free as he could fly. Even though Naruto remained boisterous and irritable, his incessant arguments with Kyuubi gave him a determination and drive that few could match. Kyuubi's disposition remained unchanged. However, Akira herself has become much more relaxed, quiet, and reluctant to work, and her language has become much trashier. She shrugs as she turns to face her brother. Just trying to sort out everything, it seems to have gone by so fast. Naturo gives a nod. "I understand what you're saying." Akira laughs and says, "Don't let Naruto san hear you say that. Perhaps it's just because we are still infants in terms of lifespan." "My lips are sealed," Naturo says with a hint of humor as some of his metal covers his mouth and nose, and Akira laughs and gives him a shoulder slap. "Let's keep them that way," she says. Naturo jumps to one of the crew members and shrugs. "We are now in the land of the sea. The five youths smile as they gaze out at the small island village with a lovely cove, many caverns, and a smaller island farther away. All right, let's go enjoy ourselves, Kyuubi says. The others nod, jump from the ship, and land on the ground, but none of them noticed a girl about Kyuubi's age, with 2/3 of her body wrapped in bandages, staring at them with sad, calculating eyes. Change of scene. Sasuke and Hinata, who had both raised their eyebrows at the odd spires with the glowing spheres at the top, nodded to one another and went inside, unsure of their purpose. They were standing in front of the ruins of an old ninja village. Over the years, Hinata and Sasuke had changed. Her left hair spike had grown down to her stomach, while the other stuck out to the side over the bandages that slanted over her right eye. The Shikugen had replaced the bandage, but she still liked the way it looked, especially when the end of the bandage swayed in the wind behind her like a tail, and the rest of her hair was still short and stuck out in the back. She was wearing a pale lavender yukata dress with long slits on the sides that showed off her long, attractive legs, even for an 11-year-old girl. Her back was adorned with a pale lavender sun with 3 red tomes in the center, and a black stripe ran down the left sleeve, while the end of the right sleeve had a black ring around it. Another black stripe began at her left shoulder, slanted across her chest, and led all the way down the right leg slit of the outfit. Sasuke was wearing a lavender kimono with the design of the lavender 3-tome sun on a dark blue shirt underneath, a standard katana strapped to his waist, and a pair of sandals in the Japanese style. He had grown taller and had a wiser look in his eyes, and he had remained essentially the same except for the plate covering his eye. He glances at Hinata, who looks back at him, and they both nod before entering the destroyed village. They searched the village all day and found a few headbands, which were yellow, orange and had a sun decoration on the metal plate, but other than that, not much was there. Hinata had parted ways with Sasuke and was on her way to what she thought were the ruins of the cage tower, silently observing everything around her. Something didn't feel quite right about this place. It had clearly been a strong ninja village, so how could she have known about it? How could this not be in the history books? She would question Sama about it when they got back to Cloud. One white t-shirt caught Sasuke's attention as he was searching through the remnants of an old weapons store. However, what really caught his attention was the style of the shirt, which was a toddler's shirt and appeared to be quite old. It was covered in dirt, but one particular detail stuck out like a sore thumb. "Come on over, Hinata." With a voice full of excitement, Sasuke says. Hinata rushes over, still holding the headbands. "What? Sasuke, what is it? Who in the world wore this shirt as a little kid?" Sasuke asks, holding up the shirt to show her. Hinata narrows her eyes and studies the shirt in detail, taking in the dirt, the white, the... When she sees the distinctive orange spiral, she lets out a loud gasp. Naruto was present, nodding. Sasuke says, "Come on. I believe we must return to Kumo. Perhaps Yugito can detect his scent and pursue him." Hinata smiles. This shirt must be at least 5 years old, and it's impossible to tell where he is right now. But at the moment, it's our only lead. After leaving the village, Hinata and Sasuke run back toward Kumo. Change of scene. It felt good to be out of that cave at last. Naruto, Kyuubi, Raven, Akira, and Naturo were sitting on a cliff and watching the sunset. They were covered in salt and scuff marks and had big smiles on their faces. They were also sighing from rough housing in the water. Kyuubi's head was resting on Raven's shoulder, and Naruto was absorbed in thought, likely conversing with Kyuubi. All of their weapons and scrolls were in a pile a few yards back. The words, "Hey Taiyu, Chan," are cut off when Raven is struck in the head. "Don't call me that, the name is so girly," Naturo and Akira laugh. Looking at Kyuubi, Raven massages the lump on his head and says, "Anyway, as I was saying, you want to go for a flight?" Kyuubi smiles, expands a pair of smoky wings, and says, "Of course Raven-kun." With a smile, Raven spread his wings. Wow. The 5 jump to their feet and spin around. Oh no. A figure was seen fleeing as was heard, and Naturo sprang into action, causing liquid metal to pour off of him. He says, "I got this," and then disappears. Change of point of view. She was running, exhausted and afraid. She didn't intend to follow them for so long, but something about them seemed strange. They were all about her age and clearly not from this area, but something called to her. She was shocked by what she had seen that girl and the boy do, and now she was running for her life, unsure of how the group would react to her spying on them. Her heart was pounding. No, I'm not going to be caught. She stumbles over a root and hits the ground hard. She screams and jumps up, but it's too late. Something grabbed her ankles. Her fear reaches new heights, and she gasps. Running is pointless. You will not escape. She turns slowly and freezes. She is terrified by what she sees. One of those boys was it. Behind her, he stood on the house's roof, staring down with emotionless eyes. Something weird was circling his body. She starts to shiver as memories of her past experiences with captors come flooding back. Please. I didn't mean to spy, I just wanted to know who you guys were. I won't do a day. Again, I promise. Please, just don't hurt me. Tears start to form in her eyes as she falls to her knees. Naturo was surprised at this response. He only intended to question her about why she was watching him and the others. This was unexpected. He jumps to his knees and crouches beside the girl. He observes that she had bandages on the majority of her body. Placing a hand on her shoulder, he sighs pitifully in his mind at her severe flinch. What is your name? The girl looks at the boy beside her and freezes. She widens her eyes at what she sees as she looks into his light gray eyes. It wasn't disdain or rage. It was worry, fear for her. She looks away slowly. My name is Isaribi. Naturo gives a small smile and gets back up. She looks up to see that he is extending his hand to her and says, my name is Naturo Uzumaki. Once more, she freezes. Must she do it? Is she really willing to risk anything with this boy? How about his pals? What happens if they discover her secret? Gently, she lifts her hand and puts it in his. He yanks her to stand up. Isaribi, pretty name. She gets a little flushed. Come on. I'll introduce you to my siblings. But. Do not worry. My San has lived a life like yours. The pain in your eyes is similar to his own. He will accept you as will the others. But you don't understand. I'm different. I'm not normal. Naturo smiles and uses some of his metal to create an exact duplicate of Isaribi. We're all different in some way. Isaribi smiles and loosens up a bit. In addition, it was clear that both the girl and the boy had special skills. Thus, perhaps they wouldn't reject her. Her hand still clinging to Naturo's in fearful anticipation, she nods to him and follows him. Change of scene. Izuki and Ikimu Inakuto, who had just rested for a day and were completely refreshed, were racing through the forest at a breakneck pace. Back in Iwa, the three young Hyusha members were still in disbelief over what they had discovered. Dude. To think those Uzumakis were capable of such things, Izuki says. Yes. I start thinking about my Shiikugen. Really, could it be? Inakuto starts. Ikimu shrugs and says, it's kind of unbelievable. Raikage. Sama may still have some information. In particular, this village. The light that's hidden. Hey, I wonder if Sasuke, Sama and Hinata, Sama know anything about this Naruto person they're searching for, Inakuto says. Probably not. Recall that Naruto is about our age. That indicates that he left Konoha at the age of 6, just before Sasuke. Sama and Hinata. Sama arrived in Kumo. That indicates that he is the only one remaining or that his clan disapproved of him. Yes, excellent point. All of this is still very exciting, though. Iwa, Hikiri, the Uzumaki clan, and DNA manipulation technology. This is really awesome. And the scroll was found. Unaware of the series of events that would undoubtedly ensue, the three kids smile and quicken their pace, eager to reach the secret cloud village and show the Raikage what they have found. Sasuke and Hinata return in the meantime, Naruto's old shirt securely stored in his pack. Hinata murmurs, I hope we will find you soon, Naruto. Hinata and Sasuke reached the gates of Kumo nearly simultaneously with Inakuto, Ikimu, and Izuki. They exchanged glances and a silent question and answer before entering Kumo together and moving silently in the direction of the Raikage Tower. Sasuke observes that Izuki and Inakuto are unusually silent and solemn, as if they have discovered something in Iwa. Hideki, Yugito, and the Raikage greet the five-person group as they arrive at the Raikage Tower. How unexpected. Are all 5 of you returning at once? How was your mission? She inquired. First to speak, Inakuto said, we were able to secure many useful jutsu and started Scroll's Raikage. Sama, as the young Hyusha swiftly opened his pack and dropped the numerous scrolls they had taken from Iwa. We also found the remnants of their scroll of sealing, Ikimu said after dropping the fragments of the Iwa Forbidden Scroll. It looks like someone chopped it up out of rage or just to get even with the village. Whoever demolished the location 5 years ago might have done it. The Raikage nods, saying, well done, Ikimu-san. Ikimu bows respectfully, saying, you and your siblings will be rewarded for your efforts. Next was Izuki. Raikage. Sama, we discovered something in Iwa as well that we believe is very significant. It concerns the beginnings of all Kiki Genkei and a lost village. The Raikage's eyes enlarge slightly, with a sudden focus on Sasuke and Hinata. The three Hyusha siblings say, it also may involve this Uzumaki Naruto you two are looking for. Hinata exclaims. Did you uncover him? Perhaps it is best if I just read the contents of the scroll, Izuki says, shaking her head. After that, she opens it and places it in front of herself. We'll see. This is how it begins. Change of scene. As they waited for Naturo to return, Naruto, Tayuya, Akira, and Raven decided to practice their sparring skills. Tayuya launched herself at Akira, who swung her hammer with two hands. The weapon smashed into Tayuya's head, but the girl burst into smoke and wrapped thick, solid ropes around Akira. Tayuya's head materialized in front of Akira and grinned. Leave the wind. A bullet of air. Whoa. Naruto's wind breaks up Tayuya, releasing Akira. Thanks, San. She called out as she dropped to the ground. Raven appeared and slams his fist into his sister's stomach and sends her crashing into the sea. Naruto yells, "Hey asshole." Raven smiled and drew his crystal scythe before drawing his orange sword. Tayuya appeared next to him, her arms forming into blades, and then they all disappeared a second later. Change of scene. Naturo wondered what the village had done to the girl who was clinging to his hand in terror. She was so scared, so uncertain, so tired of her surroundings, and her eyes were filled with unwavering fear. Please relax Isaribi, I won't hurt you. With uncertain eyes, Isaribi looks up at Naturo and says, I'm sure you won't be. But. She blushes a little as he puts a finger to her lips. My siblings won't either, he says, I swear. Isaribi couldn't resist grinning and taking a step toward the metal manipulator, engulfing herself in his protective aura. When they returned to the location where they were looking out to sea, they found a scene of mayhem. Raven unleashes a torrent of black feathers at Akira, who was riding on the back of a large red fox with two tails that simply breathed in and sent a large burst of wind and sent the feathers all over the place, while Tayuya, who was now completely transparent with smoke, makes a giant smoke hammer and slams it into the ground in an attempt to hit Naruto, who used an earth barrier to shield himself. Naturo sighed and said, Guys, I'm back. Isaribi gasped and buried her face in Naturo's chest, but Naruto just twitched an eyebrow and a circular shield of metal formed in front of the two, deflecting the feathers. The fight was over in an instant, and the four others came over to him beaming. Well, damn time is coming. Have you caught the spy? Isaribi flinched and hid farther behind Naturo when Tayuya asked. Isaribi gasped and struggled to free herself, but it was in vain. Naruto slowly wrapped a tendril of his metal around Isaribi's waist and lifted her up and over to place her down in front of her. Naruto was the first to approach. The girl was about Tayuya's age, maybe a year older, with dark brown, almost black hair and bandages all over her body. He looked into her eyes and noticed how similar they were to his own, and he grinned warmly. Hi there. Naruto is my name. Akira is the blonde, Raven is the hyperactive idiot with the winged scythe, and Tayuya is the smoky girl who uses profanity. We are tourists who were merely seeking a spot to unwind for a bit. Please tell us your name. Isaribi looked uncertain, then glanced at Naturo, who nodded his head. She whispered, Isaribi, and when Naturo let her go of his metal and joined his siblings, Naruto held out his hand and remarked, Isaribi huh? A lovely name. Naturo said, I said the same thing, and Tayuya smiled as she walked up to the bandaged girl, circling her a few times and looking at every inch of her. You seem okay, she said. Say, do you know of any decent lodging options? The blonde bakas go into ramen mania every 2 days or so, and we've only been here a short while. Well, there are a few places but Isaribi trailed FF and glanced at Naturo, letting a ghost of a smile form on her lips before it disappeared. Naruto instantly understood and smiled once more. Where do you reside? Isaribi freezes, staring at Naruto with wide eyes. Huh. You look like you could use some company, Naruto says with a smile. So, what are your thoughts? Isaribi cast an uncertain glance down and said, I don't know, the villagers they. Fuck them. Tayuya screamed. Huh. Both Raven and Naruto smiled. And a clan of overpompous demon foxes, complained Naruto at the end. Isaribi, who had never defied an adult in her life, was at a loss for words. She accepted everything they threw at her and went about her life, ignoring everyone around her. She said fuck them. Stupid adults all think they know everything and they all think they can treat others however they want. We've all been on our own since we were very little and only had each other as company. Come on, girl. You can rely on us. We're not going to do anything, Kyuubi grinned. And besides, there are not enough girls in our group, Akira replied. While grunting, Naruto and Raven remarked, not enough human girls she means. Hey, it's accurate. We don't know any more human girls besides you and Kyuubi-chan, so please stop talking. Isaribi couldn't contain her laughter, and she looked at Naturo, gently squeezing his hand and saying, okay, follow me. Isaribi turned to guide them to her house as the group grinned. I have to caution you. The villagers are they. Ah, don't worry. They're dead if they try anything, Kyuubi declared. With wide eyes, Isaribi exclaimed, why? You'd kill them? Yes. Okay. Isaribi didn't say anything more, she simply nodded and led Naruto and his friends to her house. The five of them did notice the disdainful looks Isaribi was receiving as they passed a man and his wife. There were sneers and scoffs, and someone even muttered, freak, throughout the village. Naruto wasn't happy about these things, and he started to inadvertently reveal his intention to kill. Hey bro, relax, Raven said in a whisper. Naruto grinned as he turned to face his brother and said, I apologize. Simply put, I detest these individuals. This is how things were in Konoha when I lived there. It also doesn't help that foolish Shadow kept using a genjutsu to force me to relive those incidents until I figured out how to break it. Hey Fox, remind me to give your little boyfriend a punch next time Akira Chan summons his black and golden ass. For the last time, you annoying little insect, he is not my boyfriend, he's just an acquaintance of the royal family. Yes, whatever the case, let's just remember to remind me. Peeved. Damn foxes. Kyuubi and Akira were attempting to persuade Isaribi to divulge more information while Naruto was speaking with the Kyuubi. So, what do you like to do in this area? Isaribi winced a little but responded when Kyuubi asked. Enjoyable. Swimming, I suppose. At the same time, Akira and Raven asked, what swimming? Isaribi exclaimed, why you don't know how to swim? Hey. Akira, Naturo and I spent nearly our entire lives training in a cave with demon foxes. The only thing I know about swimming is that it has something to do with water. I think, Raven responded. Isaribi was powerless to stop it. She chuckled. What kind of backwater town are you guys from anyway? Are you from Suna or something? Isaribi laughed more at the clone's perplexed expressions. Oh, don't mind them. Naruto and I are the only how do I say this? Normal? No, that definitely ain't the description to use. I got it. Let's just say they haven't been out long, yeah that's it. Isaribi lifted one eyebrow, then let it fall, she assumed that everyone had a past. As they turned a corner, they saw a run-down, graffiti-covered house with broken windows and a blanket for a door. Well, Isaribi muttered, this is it. Kyuubi grinned and remarked, shit, it's not bad at all. Better than that damn cave, after the group had gazed at the house for a full minute. The others grinned broadly and nodded to Isaribi. Her spirits soon returned to normal. With excitement, she yanked Naturo by the hand and walked toward her house. Come on in then, she said. However, as soon as they entered, the atmosphere vanished. As Isaribi, Naturo, Naruto, Raven, Kyuubi, and Akira entered the living room, they noticed a man reading a small orange book and eating sushi on the couch. His face was tattooed with red lines that crossed his eyes and ran down the sides of his face, and he had long white hair. He had a big scroll strapped to his back and a headband with the kanji for oil on it. He was laughing strangely and appeared to be completely carefree. The first to act was Kyuubi. She threw one of her glowing kunai knives at his head without saying a word. He flicked his wrist lazily to deflect it. Little girls shouldn't play with sharp things. They might get hurt, he stated. Raven snarled and seized his scythe's handle. Isaribi squinted and said, who are you and what are you doing in my home? For the first time, the man raised his head to examine the girl who was bandaged. So you're the monster I've been hearing about a lot. Well, I didn't anticipate a young lady. Very interesting. Grabbing his sword, Naruto scowled and said, who are you, old man? The group realized that the man was tall, at least a foot taller than they are, when he glared at Naruto and was about to respond, but froze. His eyes widened, and he slowly stood up. Not at all. Began the man as he stepped a bit closer. Naruto drew his sword in a flash and pointed it at the man's stomach. Stay back. The man turned to face the others, first Kyuubi, who was now transparent and poised to attack, then Isaribi, who was once more looking somewhat scared but determined, her hand gripping the bandages on her head, but he gasped when he saw Akira, Raven, and Naturo. "What are your names?" He pointed to the 3 clones and asked. The man was confronted by Naruto, who gave him a fierce look. "Answer our questions first." After clearing his throat and shaking his head, the man said, "My apologies, brats." Akira and Raven snarled. Simply put, aside from the Kyuubi container, I didn't believe that any other Uzumakis were still alive. And in addition to the Kyuubi container, I also find 3 other Uzumaki kids here. The man laughed and remarked, "Such skill you all have." Naruto and his siblings both gasped, and before most people could have guessed, all 4 of them were on the man. Akira was sitting on the back of a large 3-tailed fox that was growling and ready to bite his head off. Naturo had his enormous kunai at his chest. Raven had both of his scythes at the man's legs, and Naruto had both of his swords in an X across his throat. "Who and what have you been training with?" one might wonder. With narrowed eyes, Naruto uttered, "Tell us how you know who we are." After disappearing in a cloud of smoke, the man's voice could be heard outside. "If you want to know, follow me. I also have some questions." With wide eyes, Isaribi turned to face the 4 Uzumakis as they sheathed their weapons. Demon container?" she inquired. "Yeah," Naruto said, nodding, "that's why we've been alone. Everybody has something that sets them apart from the others. My distinction from the 9-tailed, sulky vixen imprisoned in my navel." As Naruto left the house, the others gave him sympathetic looks and soon followed. After they left, Isaribi became preoccupied with a demon container. She had heard a lot about them and had been taught to despise them because they were monsters and weapons, but this one was different from what she had been taught. He was kind and even had siblings. In addition, she had to ask herself how she could despise a demon container when she had experienced that same hell herself. When Naruto and his friends reached a small clearing outside the village, they noticed a man sitting cross-legged in the middle of it. He smiled and said, "All right, let me introduce myself. My name is Jiraiya. One of the fabled Sannin of Konoha is me." Weapons were drawn, and there were a few gasps. "Hey, relax, I haven't come here to try and take you back to Konoha. I actually came here investigating a rumor about a sea monster that lives in this town." "All right, I'll give you the benefit of the doubt, but tell us how you know who we are," Naruto said, letting his tension drop. Jiraiya turned to the group and replied, "Well, first off, I don't know who you all are per se. I only know who you are, Naruto. After all, that seal that holds back the demon was partly created by me." Shocks. "I instantly recognized you as an Uzumaki because 1. The whisker marks on your cheeks that mark as the Kyuubi Jinchuriki. 2 is your stunning resemblance to your father who was married to an Uzumaki, and the reason I recognized you 3 as Uzumakis as well is because of your eerie resemblance to Naruto that could only mark you as his siblings. Or something else closely similar." Eyes widened a little before Tayuya cut them off. "Wait, you said you know who Naruto's dad was, right? Let's hear it." Jiraiya sighed and said, "I'm not sure I should tell you. It might complicate things." Naruto nodded and turned to face her. "Complicate things? Listen, old man, I left Konoha when I was 6 years old. 6? Don't you think things are already complicated enough? Tell me who my father was, and while you're at it, tell me who my mom was too." Jiraiya let out a sigh. He froze when he noticed the scroll dangling from Akira's back. "I suppose I could tell you," he said. He sounded almost desperate as he said, "Girl, where did you get that?" Akira stiffened and set her hammer down. She said, "What's it to you, old man?" Jiraiya nodded his head and replied, "Sorry, it's just that ever since the destruction of Hikarigakure no Sato we all thought that the scroll of sealing was lost forever." Hikari. Wait, you know about the Hidden Light Village? "I was one of the people responsible for its destruction," Jiraiya said, looking up with regret in his eyes. After a protracted silence, Naruto sprang to his feet and aimed his sword. "Okay, old man. Now I have more questions and I want them answered. Why would 7 different villages attack and destroy a prospering village out of the blue like that, and why wouldn't it be in any history books?" With a sigh, Jiraiya turned to face the group. Isaribi was hiding in the bushes, but he didn't notice him. The village hidden in the light was a threat to the world, and so was the Uzumaki clan. Each of the 6 youths let out a gasp, to which Naruto replied, "What do you mean?" Jiraiya looked down and sighed. "Naruto, your clan has a certain knowledge. Such knowledge had the potential to make them the single greatest clan ever to have been born into the world. And a young charismatic man by the name of Kokodo Uzumaki was the ultimate testament to such a claim." Naruto kept his gaze fixed. "I want to know more. Jiraiya returned to her seat after nodding. Taking a deep breath, he said, "You can come out now." Isaribi came out a second later, looking sheepish. After grinning, Naruto asked, "So you don't care?" Shaking her head, Isaribi remarked, "I'd be a hypocrite if I cared." Naruto and the others both grinned more. "I don't even know if I should be telling you this, but I guess it is your rightful legacy," Jiraiya said, clearing his throat. Naruto gave a nod. "Well, first off, you should know that your clan was never a part of Konoha." Naruto's eyebrow went up. "You must also know that besides the village hidden in the clouds, Hidden Light had no allies. They were labeled a threat to the world." "Why?" Naruto inquired. "It's because of what the man named Kokodo and the rest of his clan had done to create it. And why there are so many different bloodline limits, and why many fear said bloodline limits." Other gasps were heard. "The Uzumaki clan created Hikaruga? Jiraiya gave a nod. "Yes, Uzumaki Naruto. Your clan is responsible for the birth of the most powerful ninja village in the entire world." Yugito, the triplets, Sasuke, and Hinata raced through the forest as quickly as they could. No way was possible. They had no intention of abandoning their search for Naruto at this point. Not with what they discovered. Not when they were still thinking about the Uzumaki clan's past. Yugito yelled, "This way," as she banked to the right. The group trailed behind the Nibi Jinchuriki and followed. They had read that scroll 2 weeks earlier. They have been searching desperately for 2 weeks now, using only the Nibi's senses that were sealed inside Yugito, after leaving the hidden cloud. They had found something promising about the boy they were looking for 2 weeks prior. Rewind. The group watched in disbelief as the scroll rolled away and clattered to the ground, unraveling the entire process and making the words inside visible to everyone. "I never thought this day would come. I never thought I'd ever hear of that village again. Of my love," the Raikage said, peering out the window. Sasuke took a step forward. "Raikage, Sama, what happened back then?" "I'll tell you in time," the Raikage said, wiping away her tears. "First, you need to find Uzumaki Naruto and bring him here. He has a right to know what's in that scroll." "Yugito, can you track the scent of that shirt?" Yugito scowled and sniffed. Her eyes glazed over and widened. "I can't really. The scent is old. Very old. There's no way for me to," she said. The group watched anxiously. Yugito abruptly reached for the shirt and took another sniff, taking a deep breath. No way." "What?" Inakuto inquired. Yugito stifled a grin. "Nibi is content. This scent," she said, "belongs to one of her friends." "Really? Who?" Hideki inquired. "Nibi said the scent belongs to the Kyuubi no Kitsune," Yugito said, her eyes widening. Both Sasuke and Hinata gasped. "What does that signify, then?" the Raikage inquired. Yugito exclaimed, "It means that I can track him now," as he gave them an excited look. Additionally, it indicates that Naruto Uzumaki is a Jinchuriki, the Kyuubi's container. The triplets, Hinata, and Sasuke all gasped. But how? The Yondaime killed the Kyuubi," Sasuke cried out. "No, it seems that Konoha has lied. They sealed off the Kyuubi. Along with the smell of ramen and perspiration, the scent permeates this shirt." With tears in her eyes, Hinata said, "So that's why he left." "You said you could trace the scent of the Kyuubi back to the source?" Sasuke asked, nodding before turning back to face Yugito. "I can't, but the Nibi can," Yugito said, shaking her head. "We can locate him in no more than 3 weeks if we depart now." Hinata grinned broadly. "You're going after him then?" the Raikage said, rising to his feet and glancing down at the three. Sasuke replied, "Of course," and the Raikage grinned before turning to face Inakuto, Izuki, and Ikimu. "You three will go with them," he said. "We're not sure if Uzumaki has any friends, and ninjas showing up out of the blue and asking him to visit a village could backfire. If he is traveling with more than 2 friends, you 3 can help them." All 3 gave a nod. "Additionally, this has also involved the 3 of you. You uncovered the Uzumaki clan's secret after finding the scroll. Sasuke and Hinata have no more right to this than the 3 of you." The trio bowed as they turned to face Sasuke and Hinata, saying, "It would be an honor to assist you, Sasuke." Sama and Hinata. Sama. "Hideki, you will take care of the Hyusha clan while they are away," the Raikage said with a smile. "Hi Raikage." Sama. "Well, what are you waiting for?" she asked, nodding and glancing down at the 5. "You need to get back in touch with a friend you lost." With a smile, Sasuke and Hinata left the room without saying anything more, followed closely by Yugito and the 3 Hyusha triplets. Flashback at the end. The 6. person group landed in front of a sizable cave after falling from the trees. Yugito remarked, "It appears that Naruto spent a lot of time here." Her eyes widened and she took several sniffs around. She sniffed once more and said, "There are 4 identical scents here. They all belong to Naruto. San. Additionally, there is someone who has a strong smoke odor." "In which direction does the trail go?" "It leads to sea country," Yugito said after taking a few more sniffs in response to Sasuke's question. "It is still a relatively new trail." With a nod, Sasuke took off, with the others trailing closely behind. Yugito said, "Come on this way," as she swerved slightly to the left and pulled ahead. With a smile, Hinata gazed up at the sky and said, "I'll see you again, Naruto." With a determined gaze, Sasuke said, "You better be there, Naruto." Since they had never met Naruto before, Inakuto, Ikimu, and Izuki had no thoughts, but they always unconsciously touched the corners of their eyes when they thought about him, and as the crimson books turned and the veins around their eyes swelled, they thought of one thing. Uzumaki. Change of scene. As the ferry approached, Naruto, his siblings, and Tayuya stood at the sea's edge, utterly stunned by what they had learned from Jiraiya. To think that Naruto was the heir to such a legacy left them unsure of what to think. Jiraiya's news had been like a hammer blow to Naruto, who was the son of the Yondaime Hokage and the descendant of Kokodo Uzumaki, the most dangerous man on the planet, whose clan had built a strong village that terrified the rest of the world and caused their destruction. His mind was still filled with unresolved questions as he and his friends stood and waited for the ferry. Who was Kokodo really? Why was he viewed as so dangerous? Why was the Uzumaki clan viewed as so dangerous? Why hadn't anyone told him about his parents? Why had his father sealed this demon inside of him? Was it only to save Konoha? What precise role do bloodline limits play in the Uzumaki clan? He had a lot of questions, but he had no answers. He tried to question Jiraiya, but he didn't know much either, or he didn't want to tell them. He felt a little guilty as he glanced at his friends, who were now involved with him. They shared a deep and shocking secret, though, and Tayuya had never experienced the love of a family because of her rape and beating history. Although Orochimaru had saved her, she hadn't really gotten to know him when Naruto arrived in Oto. Raven, Akira, and Naturo were 3 typical children who had a secret that would surely land them on the closest dissecting table. Kyuubi and himself created living, breathing, and extremely human shadow clones 5 years ago. 2 of them even had their own bloodline limitations. His thoughts were cut short when someone yelled, "He!" When they turned around, Isaribi was sprinting toward them. Another one. She was Orochimaru's experiment and now possessed an artificial bloodline limit that enables her to breathe underwater. His skull was burned with her metamorphosis. She was grinning broadly and had a backpack slung over her back. While Tayuya, Akira, and Naturo smiled, Naruto arched an eyebrow. Raven merely grinned. "Why you don't mind, do you? If I travel with you all?" Isaribi asked, glancing at them. Naruto and the others smiled as they walked up to the girl. Naturo had brought her to them 2 weeks prior, and he could tell that she had never been happier. "We don't mind at all. Besides, the more the merrier." Isaribi hugged Naruto and grinned. Additionally, the ferry docked at this time, and people poured out to see the surroundings or to go to their homes. Naruto turned to face his friends once the path was clear. "Well, let's go," he smiled. "So where to?" Akira asked. Naruto raised his head. That Jiraiya guy said that the hidden light only had one friend, right?" "Yeah, that's what he said. It was called Kumo something," Raven replied. "Yeah, Kumogakure no Sato. The village hidden in the clouds. I've actually been there once a long time ago," Isaribi replied. "No way, really?" Naruto questioned. Isaribi gave a nod. "Yeah, someone I used to know brought me there while he was searching for something." Naruto said, "All right, then let's get started." Raven said, "To the hidden cloud." "To the hidden cloud." Naruto nodded, adding, "The only village left that may have answers for us." With a nod, the group boarded the ferry. "Last call," the boy in the crow's nest exclaimed. Before the boat drew away and began to head for the mainland, a few more latecomers hurried on board. Isaribi looked up as the ferry sailed across the water. She told herself, "I haven't left the island in ages. Is it a bad thing?" asked Naturo as he appeared next to her. She gave a headshake. "No, it's liberating." Naturo gave her a quick glance and a small smile. "Well, now you're free. You'll get to see the world now. Just as soon as Ni-san get the answers he seeks." Isaribi nodded and then gave Naturo a perplexed look. "What about you? Don't you want to know about your heritage, your clan?" Naturo gave a headshake. San is the only true member of the Uzumaki clan. Akira, Raven and I have but one purpose, and that's to be there for San. We're here simply to keep him from being alone. But you're in Uzumaki's, correct? Naturo gave a nod. True, but I could care less about the origins of the Uzumaki clan. As far as I'm concerned, they all abandoned San. Just because the hidden light was destroyed does not mean that there were no more Uzumakis left. His mother joining Konoha and having a kid by the Yondaime was proof enough. I think that having the Kyuubi sealed within him would have been common knowledge within the surviving Uzumakis. But what if they were all really killed and his mom was the only survivor? What if she managed to escape to Konoha in the nick of time? I guess. But why would she flee to Konoha, one of the very villages that helped with the destruction of her home? Isaribi raised her head. Naturo gave a deep breath and replied, I hope what you say is true. Because if I ever run into another member of the Uzumaki clan that is not San, I will kill them, slowly and painfully, for abandoning him. Isaribi sighed at Naturo's dejected and aloof expression. She leaned her head on his shoulder as she scooted closer. Don't think too much about it. At least he's not alone now. He has you, Akira, Raven and Tayuya. Naturo gave a nod. He also has me, Isaribi said, placing her hand on his. Naturo gave her a startled look, but she was grinning and had her eyes closed. Thank you, he muttered. From a distance, Naruto, Tayuya, Akira, and Raven observed the action. Raven and Tayuya were smiling. Naruto was nodding his head while keeping his eyes closed, and Akira was grinning. Raven said, Heh, they sure are chummy all of a sudden, huh? Tayuya turned to Smoke and smiled. She drifted toward the couple and encircled them with a big, smoky heart. There were a few chuckles before Naturo's metal abruptly burst forth and encased the smoke in an orb. Ah, such is the melody of true love, he said. Hey. Then there was more laughter. Hey ass face. Let me out. This continued for several more minutes until the metal found its way back to Naturo and transformed into his armor and weapons once more. Returning to her human shape, Tayuya glared at everyone. Fuck all of you assholes, change of scene. At the sea's edge, Yugito came to a halt. As they landed next to her, Sasuke, Hinata, Inakuto Izuki, and Ikimu gazed out to sea. The Jinchuriki said, the trail ends here, while she kept her gaze fixed on the ocean. The other five nodded and kept their eyes fixed on the future. Hinata asked Sasuke, so what do you think he's like now? Sasuke simply gave a shrug. I can't really say. He's been running around the world for 5 years. There's no telling what he's become. Hinata cast her gaze downward. Yeah. Sasuke touched her shoulder with a hand and said, hey, cheer up. We didn't search all this time, ditch Konoha and help create a new clan possessing the secrets of 2 of Konoha's most prized bloodline limits and train for 5 years under the tutelage of the Raikage and a highly trained Junin just so we could have doubts now. Hinata nodded, grinning. So who was this Naruto anyway? What was he to you before you all left Konoha? Ikimu asked as he walked up. Sasuke looked at the child and responded, we really didn't know Naruto actually. We only met him once right before he vanished, but when we did it was strange. There was just something about him. His eyes held great pain, loss, longing and a deep kindness. When I met him I was lost in my own feelings. I cared for no one and saw through everyone else's attempts to pity and coddle. It was annoying. But then this boy Naruto appeared and asked me to be his friend. I told him to get lost, that I needed no pity. Naruto merely smiled and said he understood. He told me he knew about the Uchiha clan and that he was there if I ever wanted a friend. When he left and the Hokage sent a couple of ninja after him, I waited, hoping to meet him again. Silently thinking he was going to return. I was disappointed when he did not. Hinata nodded and continued, it was the same for me. I grew up in a clan of people that care more about appearance and strength than as does its members. I was to be the heir of the Hyuga clan, but I wasn't up to their standards. I wasn't like them. I couldn't be, so I was treated badly and degraded constantly. I was on the verge of breaking when he appeared. He brightly and cheerfully told my cousin and me his name and asked if we wanted to be his friend. However, my father told him off, then informed us that he was bad news and to stay away from him. But when I saw the look on his face, I was instantly drawn to him. His eyes held a strong determination. A drive that filled me with my own strength. When he left I was greatly saddened and I too waited, hoping he would come back. Well, I hope you reunite with him soon, Ikimu said with a small smile. Both of them thanked their subordinate with a smile. Izuki grinned and said, hey, the ferry's coming, as a ship sailed into the distance. Yugito smiled and waited with the others. The ship eventually docked about 30 yards downwind from them after they waited for another 30 minutes. Yugito let out a start as the crowd spilled onto the beach. Hinata inquired, "What is it?" As a group of 6 walked out of the ship and into the forest, Yugito pointed and snuffed the air a few times. The scent of the Kyuubi just went into the forest. Before Inakuto leapt to his feet, there were gasps. "Welcome on, we don't have time to be wasting around here." With a nod, Yugito leapt in front of the youthful Hyesha and commanded, "Follow me." Following orders, the group followed Yugito into the forest. Finding them only took a few minutes, and when they did, Hinata let out a gasp. That's him." They watched a girl with gray and red pink hair argue with a blonde boy who had big weights on his arms and legs that resembled gears. But this isn't right. Those 3 there look just like him, Sasuke replied. That's not all. According to my senses, they all contain the Kyuubi, Yugito scowled. Using an activated Shiikugen, Ikimu questioned, "Just what the hell is going on? Their chakra pathways are identical as well." "What? But that's not possible. The chakra paths are like fingerprints. No 2 people are the same." Ikimu simply let out a sigh. Without saying another word, he leapt from the tree and landed in front of the group, obstructing their path. This is all too strange. A bald child fell from the trees and landed in front of them just as Naruto was ready to slap Tayuya across the head. His gaze remained fixed on the group. The veins bulged around the edges of the eyes, and the red tones were spinning. His voice reminded the group of Naturo's. "Hello," he said. "My name is Ikimu Hyesha of the Hidden Cloud Village. And my superiors would like to have a word with you 6. 5 more people leapt down a second later. While the older blonde girl seemed somewhat familiar to Naruto and his clones, Naruto also noticed that 4 of them had the odd pale lavender eyes with 3 red spinning tones and veins. They got out of their crouches and stood up straight. The girl with long pigtails and brown hair yelled, "Ikimu! You idiot!" while slapping the bald boy on the head. She gestured toward Raven's sides and said, "Ya don't just jump in front of people like that. Look at those things. He coulda lopped off your chrome dome out of reflex." With a frown, Ikimu said, "Stupid girl, leave me alone." The girl with the dark blue hair and the bandages over one eye started crying as she turned to face Naruto. "I've waited so long." "Huh? I've waited so long, to meet you again, Naruto-kun. Sasuke and we've been searching for so long." Naruto turned to face his friends, who all gave him a shrug. The unidentified girl rushed at him and gave him a tight hug a moment later, and the boy with the raven hair grinned and remarked, "Good to meet you again, Uzumaki-san." After widening his eyes, Naruto carefully pulled the girl away from him. "I'm sorry, but I have never met you before in my life," he said, gazing into her joyful, tear-filled eye. Naruto and his friends gazed at the group in front of them, and the group in front of him did the same. As he asked his question, he hardly noticed Hinata's dejected expression. As Tayuya gestured toward their headbands, he questioned, "See? Cloud? You're from Kumogakure no Sato?" His eyes narrowed at Yugito's nod. "Why should we believe that? I mean, the minute we decide to go to the Hidden Cloud 6 shinobi from that village suddenly appear and want us to go with them. That way too damn convenient, and I don't believe in coincidence or fate." The eyes of the 6 Kumo nin grew wide, as they thought, he was on his way to Kumo already? Pulling out a kid's t-shirt, Yugito calmly responded to Naruto's comment, "We didn't know you were already going to Kumo. We've actually been tracking you down for the last couple of weeks." Naruto and his siblings gasped when they saw the orange spiral on it. With lightning speed, Naruto pulled out his sword and aimed it at Yugito. "Why would you be tracking me? Huh?" Sasuke and Hinata moved forward at this point. Sasuke was the first to speak. "It was Hinata and I who have been looking for you, Uzumaki-san. That's right, we have been searching for you for 5 years now." Naruto was growing irritated and said, "Aside from my siblings and Tayuya, who are standing directly behind me, I don't even know anybody from 5 years ago." Hinata cried a little and moved forward. "Why, you really don't remember Naruto? Have you forgotten us that easily?" Sasuke put a hand on her shoulder and responded, "It's alright if you don't remember us. After all, we only met once and it was very brief. However, you left an impression on us, and that's why we've been waiting to meet you again. There's more to it than that. I'm just one guy. Why waste 5 years of your life searching for one little kid that was nothing to the world?" Naruto said, pointing his sword at Sasuke. "It's because we too are from the village called Konohagakure no Sato," Hinata said, grinning tearfully as she looked up at Naruto. Naruto let out a gasp. We're all similar. I lost everything when I was 6. Hinata had everything denied by her own family, and you grew up with nothing for 6 years. You did meet us once. 5 years ago. It was a day before you left Konoha. Don't you remember? I was that angry Uchiha boy. Sasuke Uchiha. Naruto's eyes grew wide. Hinata came forward and replied, and I was that little white-eyed girl that was walking with my cousin when you found us and tried to be our friend. But my idiot of a father interfered and told you to leave. Dropping to his knees, Naruto gazed at the floor. A worried Akira knelt down next to him and asked, "San, are you alright?" Naruto remained silent. Sasuke started talking again, and he just listened. That day, you changed us. For the better. Naruto gave the two heads of the Hyesha clan a sympathetic and joyful glance as he looked up. Sasuke and Hinata, I have vague memory of two people with those names. I actually remember doing something like that when I was in Konoha, but your faces are just part of the crowd of many I have tried to befriend while in that place. I have little to no memory of Konoha other than the old man. I don't plan to have them resurface either by trying to fully remember who you are. Hinata let out a sorrowful sigh. The words, I understand, Sasuke said. Returning to his feet, Naruto spoke to the other Cloud Nin. Okay, so you say you're from the hidden cloud village, right? They gave a nod. Why should I believe that? You shouldn't. It would be unwise to just throw your trust out like that. However, it would be nice if you at least humored us a little. With a sigh, Naruto returned his attention to his group. Well, what do you all think? Tayuya and Raven were not listening. A thumb war was going on between them. Tayuya continued to win because she continued to use smoke to lengthen her thumb. Naruto arched an eyebrow. Moving forward, Isaribi declared, I don't see any deception in their eyes. Yeah, but they could be really good at lying, Akira replied. After giving a nod, Naruto faced his other brother. He smiled and said, what about you, Metal Boy? To Naturo. The boy simply let out a sigh and turned back to face the Kumo Nin, who were looking at them with anticipation. Let's go with them, was all he said. All right, we'll believe you for the time being, but first we'll introduce ourselves. Names, ages, and goals, go, Naruto said, turning back to face the Kumo Nin. He gestured toward Yugito. Her cat-like grin, which Hinata disliked, was directed at Naruto. She approached Naruto and kissed him directly, causing a lot of reactions. Hey, a red Hinata said. Tayuya, Inakuto, and Sasuke snickered as Raven, Izuki, and Isaribi widened their eyes. Inside of Naruto's head, Kyuubi snarled. After the 30-second kiss, Naruto was glowing red when she withdrew. He cried out, W. What the hell was that? Yugito simply laughed and replied, the name's Yugito ni, I'm 14 years old and I will be the strongest ninja in the world. Oh, and that kiss was from the Nibi. She thinks you're very cute and handsome. No doubt Kyuubi will turn you into quite the man. After nodding, Naruto let out a gasp. He yelled, you know of the Kyuubi. Shush, not so loud. We'll talk about it later. For now let's just continue with the introductions. Tayuya took a step forward. My name is Tayuya. I'm 13 and I don't have any goals really. Just to travel the world with these bunch of bakas and help them discover the truth to their mysterious dead clan. A lock of Inakuto's orange hair was flipped out of his face as he stepped forward. That's right, Sasuke. Sama and Hinata. Sama. My name is Inakuto Hyesha, I'm 11 years old, and my goal is to become the strongest Hyesha ever. I'm outperforming you both. Sasuke laughed, and Hinata grinned broadly. My name is Naturo Uzumaki, said Naturo as he moved forward. He glanced at Naruto, who raised 10 fingers before lowering one. 11 years old. I want to ensure that San never experiences loneliness again. The silent message about age was not missed by the Kumo Nin, who wondered why Naruto had paused. The girl with the pigtails came forward and said, Hey, Izuki Hyesha, is my name. I'm 11 years old, and I want to meet a funny, attractive boy. She then gave Ikimu a back pat. Someone who doesn't have the personality of a lump on a log like my chrome dome brother here. My name is Isaribi, Isaribi said as she moved forward. I'm 13 too, and I'll always be by Naruto's side. And in the future, I'll get stronger and stand by Naturo-kun. The metal manipulator turned away, blushing slightly. I'm Sasuke Hyesha, he said, advancing and bowing. I'm 11 too. When I eventually face my brother, I want to become so strong that he will be intimidated by my strength and the Shiikugen's power. I'm going to crush his soul. Yugito laughed as Naruto and his group began to perspire. Oh, don't worry, he's not always so intense. Only when he mentions his brother. I'm Raven Uzumaki, Raven said, laughing and moving forward. I am also referred to as the Bloody Angel of Black Death, and everyone fears me because of my unmatched skill. Tayuya interrupted him by bopping him on the head. Quit buying so fucking full of yourself, idiot. Raven simply chuckled and replied, I'll lighten up, geez. Anyway, I'm 11, I think, and my goal is to collect all the cool looking scythes out there. Or create my own. Ikimu took a step forward. You ought to be aware of my name. I'm 11 years old, and I intend to figure out a method to silence my foolish siblings because I find their loud voices annoying. Stop talking, Baldi, Inakuto and Izuki shouted, and Naruto chuckled. Anyway, it appears that everyone knows my name. I'm 11 too. My goal is to unravel the secrets of the Uzumaki clan, and I will revive the hidden light village and rise it above the others just like my clan did. Raven exclaimed. Hey, wait a minute, since when was this goal created? Naruto simply sighed and replied, when that Jiraiya guy told us what he knew about my clan. Besides, it's not like I'm ever gonna go back to Konoha or join another village. Stupid know-it-all adults with their arrogant ways and jealousy. I bet that's why they destroyed my clan's village. They were jealous of its awesomeness. Yeah, whatever. Just know that if you die, the Uzumaki clan is screwed. Shut up. Following the Kumo Nin's laughter and wide-eyed looks upon learning that Naruto was already somewhat familiar with his clan, Hinata took the stage and introduced herself. I'm 11 and my goal is to have the Hyesha clan hand the Hyuga clan a severe defeat and then rub it in the face of my father. Naruto's eyebrow went up. Hinata blushed slightly as she looked down at this. Akira was the last to come forward. She sighed and said, my name is Akira Uzumaki. I'm 11 years old. My goal is simply to exist. I don't have any big dreams of grandeur like my siblings. I just wish to have a normal life once this whole situation with the Uzumaki clan is resolved. After the others gave a nod, Izuki approached Naruto. So Naruto's reply was, I was just wondering, how much do you guys know already? Ya know about the Uzumaki clan? Naruto's eyebrow went up. Izuki reddened slightly. Well, because we know the secret and the origins of the Uzumakis, and we also know about the origins of the bloodline limits of the world. What? Izuki backed off. It's true. We found a scroll in Iwa that explained everything about the Uzumaki clan. Its history, the village it created, the origins of the Kiki Genkai and a man named Kokodo. There was also some last-minute scribbles saying they had captured the Yondaimi's legacy recently, but then it fades out, as if a violent tremor rocked the village. Naruto was taken aback. Holy shit, no way, this can't be for real. He shook his head, looking around the group. I think we had better get to your village first. That way we can all discuss what we know. If you guys really are from Kumo, then you will give us the last pieces of this puzzle. Then we can get on with the rest of our lives. The Kumo Nin gave a nod. Naruto smiled and pointed to his group. Let's go then. Hi. Change of scene. A man with golden snake eyes laughed sadistically as he threw a young woman's severely battered and unconscious body into a cell with 4 other similarly conditioned individuals in one of the many hideouts in the nation of Rice. He approached a large tube and smiled at the naked form inside, a body that was tall and lithe but evenly muscled, aged to be about 20. It had multiple tubes, wire, and IVs attached to it, and it glowed with many seals. Excellent. Just excellent. That's 5 bloodline limits now. Kukakukuku. The fact that Orochimaru's new body was a clone of his own body, genetically engineered to contain foreign DNA, bloodline limits, and his actual ascent to power made him feel a little excited, especially as the many computers kept updating the snake user on the state of the body. As the body floated in the test tube in a lively state of unconsciousness, he observed it. Excellent, soon I shall have my body and my ultimate path to power. This is not something you can get away with, an older man, his eyes starting to glow red, yelled. You're not interested in doing that, are you? Do you recall the previous incident? Additionally, Orochimaru demonstrated his point by making a quick hand gesture that caused a seal on the man's forehead to glow. GGGGGHMPH, Kukuku. Now sit there like good little rats and watch as I become a god by using your unique abilities. I'll be extremely strong. Cough. We'll stop you. Kukuku, do you truly believe you can? Feel free to try, fools. Continue to try until you are completely gone. Kukakuku. With an evil smirk, he crossed off another bloodline limit from his list, leaving only to find the Kyuubi child and his siblings, followed by the Kagaya, the Tsuchi, and the Uchiha. A ninja with silver hair and round glasses appeared as soon as he made a hand gesture. Kabuto, come. To get the Byakugan, we are traveling to Konoha. Right now, that's the only bloodline limit I can find. With a smile, Kabuto replied, yes, my lord. The technology used for this was found in the ruins of Iwagakure 2 years ago. He had gone there to find out what might have destroyed it and ended up finding this instead. The technology was far more advanced than what that idiot scientist in C had created, and it made Orochimaru happy. He gave his clone one last glance and smiled. Don't worry, he said, smiling as he glanced at the 5 bloodline wielders who had been taken prisoner. Another roommate will be joining you soon. A young child who has beautiful, pale lavender eyes. The young woman from earlier exclaimed, you're a monster, Orochimaru, as the 5 gasped. We'll see what history has to say about that, Kukuku. For now, goodbye. After that, he and Kabuto left the 5 inmates to gaze at the monstrosity floating in front of them, with a fragment of each of them contributing to its DNA structure. A beam of chakra erupted from the old man's eyes as he scowled, harmlessly bouncing off the clone's container. We will escape Orochimaru and we will show you the true power of our bloodline limits. With determination gleaming in their eyes, the others nodded in agreement. Change of scene. Naruto raised his head thoughtfully. The hidden cloud contains the solution to my final query. What will the scroll say, I wonder? He glanced deeper into his thoughts and noticed that the Kyuubi was oddly silent, as though she knew something he didn't. He raised an eyebrow but remained silent because he didn't want to argue with the fox today. Instead, he returned his attention to reality and noticed the girl with the blank eyes staring at him out of the corner of her eye. Hinata, correct? He inquired. Ha, no need for all of that, she said, eeping and turning away. I simply wanted to know how Sasuke and you got to Kumo. Oh, that? Whoa, I thought you saw me looking at you. That was not heard by you. The girl blushed even more as Naruto laughed again. Well, when we were abducted, Sasuke and I ended up in Kumo. In the hopes that you would visit Konoha again someday, we were waiting by the front gates. Naruto cast his gaze downward. I'm sorry. Oh, don't be. We're happy. Kumo is incredible. No, not about that, Naruto said, grinning at her. I apologize for abandoning you two in that manner, had I known. Don't worry, it's okay. In addition, we're here now, correct? There is plenty of time for us to get to know one another. Yeah, Naruto smiled softly, and Hinata smiled back at him. However, neither of them realized that there was another participant in the discussion. Kyuubi growled, sensing the increasing joy in her container. Bitterly, little wench, she thought. Ikimu and Naturo were quietly discussing the benefits of defensive moves, while Yushio, Sasuke, and Isaribi watched with smiles as the rest of the group got to know one another better. Raven and Tayuya were conversing with Inakuto and Izuki. Akira was spinning her hammer in the air while mounted on her fox. Well, it looks like we're already becoming close, Naruto remarked to himself. Hinata smiled once more as she gave him a sidelong glance. Yes, we are. Orochimaru and Kabuto arrived in Konoha in a single day. It wasn't that far to Rice Country. The entire journey to Konoha Orochimaru was quiet, as he was absorbed in his own deranged thoughts and his fascination with bloodline boundaries. Kabuto recalled the day Orochimaru made the decision to pursue this objective. The snake Sanin had an unexpected realization. When it came to himself, he had been thinking about how to learn every jutsu in existence. When he started to reflect, he realized that he had recently left a certain group because their intentions conflicted with his own goals. The only person Orochimaru trusted enough to have plans with was Kabuto. Following the unsuccessful assault on Sasuke's sibling, he had started formulating a strategy to acquire Sasuke. The thought was purely coincidental. With the exception of naturally inherited jutsu, Kabuto had humorously stated that Orochimaru would undoubtedly acquire all of the jutsu in the world. Orochimaru suddenly realized this and gasped. And that brought us to the present. Before continuing to master every jutsu in the universe, Orochimaru would first compile all of the known bloodline restrictions and combine them into a body fit for him. When he lost sight of the Uchiha, he was furious. He calmed down soon, but the person with the bloodline limit would double or triple his jutsu to gain speed. Even if it meant searching the entire world for Sasuke, he would locate him. Approaching the gates of Konoha, Orochimaru and Kabuto disappeared under a strong genjutsu. The guards wouldn't be aware. Kabuto. You are to take close surveillance on the Hyuga clan. Let me know in 2 days' time and be sure to explain to me everything, including when their little princess is most vulnerable. After giving a nod, Kabuto disappeared into the darkness. Kukakukuku. I wonder how my old home has changed. Change of scene. Your next mission is a D-rank mission, Sarutobi indicated to the trio in front of him. It seems that Hyuga Hanabi has taken a bit of an interest in you three after witnessing one of your sparring matches with your sensei. The Hokage laughed as the three adopted shocked expressions. Yes, it seems she was quite impressed with your fighting abilities and desires to meet you. She's even paid for it and everything. Their shocked expressions made the Hokage laugh uncontrollably, and when one of them shouted his query, he almost burst out laughing. Hokage. Sama, this makes no sense. Why would the heir to the most prestigious clan in Konoha wish to meet with us? She's not another one of those shudder fangirls, is she? Sarutobi covered his smile and shook his head. I guess that is for you to decide it now, is it? The trio let out a loud sigh. Now don't be that way. The Hyuga clan holds you three in high regard, seeing as how your abilities rival or even surpass their own. You three could found very powerful clans in Konoha. Yeah, I know, the girl replied. The boy with the white hair said, we'll get to that hurdle when we get to it. Until then we will train. Yeah. If this, Hyuga Hanabi wants to meet us, then I feel honored. I say let's go and give her a time to remember, replied the child. Sarutobi grinned. Alright, you have your mission. After saying, Hi Hokage. Sama. The three disappeared. Sarutobi couldn't suppress a pitiful smile. They had no intention of remaining in Konoha, along with their sensei. They needed to free their own village. Additionally, he was unable to persuade them to relocate to Konoha rather than pursue the corrupt Mizukage's head. Change of scene. They had never met this Hanabi, a sheltered girl who rarely left the house, but they couldn't blame the Hyuga for being overly protective. Not after the mysterious disappearance of a girl named Hyuga Hinata 5 years ago, when the Hyuga came to the conclusion that Hinata had been abducted in the middle of the night based on the large scorch mark they found near the front gate. The three headed towards the Hyuga compound, with the long-haired girl keeping her fingers intertwined in the white-haired boy's fingers. The three were met with respectful nods and a few smug grins as they got closer to the Hyuga clan's gates. So, your task for the day is to play with Hanabi. Sama, huh? Alright, go ahead, the guard on the right said. With a nod, the trio joined the Hyuga clan. Playmates? They all pondered. After passing a few more Hyugas and through a lovely garden, the three arrived at the main home, where Haishi, the clan chief, was waiting. Well, all three of you have arrived. I thought you could be somewhere on another mission. Hyuga. Dono, there is no problem. The timing of our freedom today was ideal. Haishi grinned and said, all right, let's get started. Will you keep a careful watch on her? He then nodded to one of the servants, who immediately vanished into the home, saying, she is a talented user of Jiyuken, but I'm willing to take no more chances. I know you three are more than enough to keep her safe. Upon his return, the servant declared, I have brought her Haishi, Sama. With a smile, Haishi waved the servant away. The three then watched in some amazement as a younger girl, clad in a black kimono and appearing to be around 8 years old, stepped out from behind Haishi, her face blank and her hair waist length. I give her up to you for the day. When the daughter stuck her tongue out at her father, the three of them repressed a look of surprise once more. Take care, Haishi muttered before turning and walking away. Okay then, she said mischievously. Hyuga Hanabi is my name. I also like all three of you, Haku Momochi, Kimimaro Kagaya, and Kintsuchi. The three of them perspired. Change of scene. When it occurred, Sarutobi was contentedly smoking his pipe and lounging in his chair, savoring the contents of a particular orange book. Hey, sensei. It's been a while, out of impulse alone, Sarutobi acted, dropping the book and hurling a kunai so quickly that the owner of the voice hardly had time to react. Hey, look, I'm an elderly man. Are you trying to murder me? A moment later, Sarutobi's eyes widened as he jerked out of it and turned to face the voice's owner, who was now seated in a chair in front of him. Jiraiya? He shouted at the man with the white hair. Hey, it's been a while. I'm happy that you still enjoy my book. After coughing a little and slipping the book into his robes, Sarutobi started working. Why are you in this place? Jiraiya's smile quickly disappeared, and his expression darkened even more than Sarutobi's. I have some really unsettling news for you, sensei, in addition to a significant query. Sarutobi watched with astonishment as his fatigue increased. Jiraiya, what are you talking about? Tell me, sensei, the aforementioned man stated with a faint scowl. When were you going to tell me that for the past 5 years, the world's greatest clan's heir has been traveling the globe? Sarutobi let out a gasp. You mean Naruto? After nodding, Jiraiya let out a huge sigh. And as a result of his extensive travels, he has now made a number of astounding findings. Revelations that might make him our worst adversary. Once more, Sarutobi gasped. No. It's accurate. He is aware that his clan is not from Konoha, in addition to having found the scroll of sealing in his clan's hamlet. He will eventually find out where his ancestors came from, even though I didn't tell him. How much did you tell him, Jiraiya? I told him enough. He is aware of the history of the concealed light. He is aware that he is the final Uzumaki and is familiar with the names of the 7 villages that destroyed his kin and the one they established. What about the cause? His knowledge has not yet awakened, Jiraiya said, shaking his head, so he doesn't know what he can do yet. I'm to blame for this, Sarutobi said, collapsing into his chair. When he was younger, I didn't do enough to keep him safe. Jiraiya's eyebrow went up. His life was a living horror because he is the Kyuubi's Jinchuriki. He left Konoha for that reason. After him, I sent 2 ANBUs, but they were unsuccessful. It seems that he has a medal. Manipulating sidekick, a new bloodline limit of some kind. I was a little anxious after hearing that news. Yes, indeed, Jiraiya said, nodding. Except for the one who can turn into smoke, I've never seen any of their unusual talents, so I'm not very shocked by that. He has 5 more friends, all of whom are strong. So, do you know where they might be going? I informed them that Kumogakure was Hikarigakure's sole ally, Jiraiya lamented. Great, so now they're headed that way. Most likely, Jiraiya replied. Damn it, this is not good at all. I can only hope that Naruto is not a spiteful person, and that he can forgive me. We've all made mistakes in the past, sensei. Yeah, but my sins are those that will get me sent to hell. With a nod, Jiraiya remarked, you and me both, sensei. Change of scene. The 3 had underestimated how boisterous Hanabi was. She was really glad to occasionally leave her tribe because she was sorely lacking in interaction with the outside world. She incessantly questioned the 3 about their ancestry and what life was like outside the hamlet boundaries. Haku Zabuza and the Hokage didn't say anything to Kimimaro because she was a person who only spoke to Kin. However, Kin was more than happy to share with the girl the details of her life in Kusa, including her past. Haku was also open to answering inquiries, such as whether or not he identified as a girl. The 3 brought Hanabi wherever she wanted to go for the entire day because the girl needed it, and they were internally pleased to see how happy she was. She was noisy, impulsive, and constantly searching for entertaining activities, making her the exact opposite of any Hyuga. The 3 had a good time. She thanked them lavishly and bowed deeply when it was time for her to go home, promising to pay for them to play with her once more. Goodbye, Kimimaro. Goodbye, Kin, Haku, Chan, goodbye. Even though Haku's eyebrow began to twitch, he still grinned and waved the girl off as her father escorted her back inside. After thanking them, Haishi sent them go. However, the 3 failed to notice the person vanishing from the Hyuga clan and glinting in and out of invisibility as they returned to the Hokage. Kabuto was almost overjoyed. Await Orochimaru's reaction to this. His lord would undoubtedly compensate him well for this finding, he said quietly as he moved quickly, stealthily, and efficiently to their meeting place without anybody noticing. When he finally reached the appointed location, he smiled as his master's gloomy figure materialized in front of him. Kabuto-kun, are you already back? I said 2 days, didn't I? After bowing, Kabuto continued, pardon me, Orochimaru. Sama. However, I have some news. I'm sure you would be delighted to hear this news. Orochimaru looked at his subordinate sharply. It turns out that the 2 from Kiri and the 1 from Kusa reside here. Lord Orochimaru. In Konoha. Orochimaru's gaze grew wide. Kabuto, this makes a huge difference. 4 at once. This is incredible, fantastic work. Kabuto grinned and said, so, what are your plans? Orochimaru laughed. I will take the girl myself in a few days' time and you will lead the 3 to me by using her as bait. When Kabuto nodded, Orochimaru burst out laughing. Yeah, kukakukuku. I just need to locate the Kyuubi, the Uchiha, Brat's siblings, and the remaining bloodline boundaries in the world. It will not be long. As the 2 started formulating a strategy that would have Konoha in a frenzy, Kabuto could only smirk. Change of scene. For a week, Naruto and his gang followed the Kumo Nin group while Naruto was absorbed in his thoughts. This is it, then. The history of my clan is just a few hours away, I wonder. The Kyuubi sat inside and watched. Well, the moment has here, huh? How will he react, I wonder? This should go well based on what I discovered hidden in his brain when I assisted him in creating his siblings all those years ago. Despite his inner demon's ideas, Naruto kept moving on since he and his friends had a mission to finish, one that started when they discovered the abandoned light village. Lost in her own thoughts, Hinata sprinted beside him. You're going to have a huge surprise, Naruto-kun. You hail from an incredibly strong and gorgeous tribe. I hope you'll be able to handle the information you're going to learn. Later that day, at around 8 o'clock at night, the gang reached Kumo, where Isaribi rode on a big fox that Akira had called upon so she wouldn't be abandoned. The 12-person delegation entered the settlement, and the guards, who already knew who it was, said nothing. As she turned to gaze around, Akira said, "Wow, it's beautiful." "Too much sunshine," Naruto said. "I enjoy it, here. Flying will be a breeze," Raven exclaimed. And Tayuya agreed beside him. Naturo simply kept moving forward, and Isaribi grinned broadly as she connected arms with the metal manipulator. Although they live in Kumo, the Hyusha triplets thought it was kind of hilarious. When they finally reached the Raikage Tower, a man with dark hair was standing in front of it. "Hideki-sensei, we have returned with Uzumaki Naruto and his companions," Yugito said. Hideki appeared a little taken aback before he composed himself. "Well, I'm a little shocked that you returned so quickly, however, it doesn't matter. Uzumaki Naruto, the Raikage has been waiting to meet you." This astonished Naruto, but he remained silent. The party as a whole followed the man with the brown hair up a number of stairs until they reached the Raikage's door. "Raikage Sama, they have returned with Uzumaki and his companions." Naruto was taken aback when the Raikage turned around and gave him and his friends a warm smile. The woman was stunning, with dark tan skin, golden eyes, purple hair, and a figure that gave the impression that she was in her early 20s, but Naruto could tell by the look in her eyes that she was much older, probably around 45. She proudly wore the cage robes. "Hi, Uzumaki-san. Mika is my name, since Ikimu, Izuki, and Inakuto returned from a raid operation in the ruins of Iwagakure. I have been waiting to see you as the Yondaime Raikage of Kumogakure no Sato." "Iwa? What attracted you to meet me at Iwa? Was she aware of what they had done to that village?" inquired Naruto, raising his guard. Mika saw the defensive expression and gave a pitiful grin. "You've been living alone for a while, don't you?" "No," Naruto answered, squinting his eyes. "Isaribi and Tayuya are my siblings. I'm never by myself." The sadness in his voice was audible to the rest of the gathering, but he spoke out again before any of them could offer consoling words. "I was told that you have information on the Uzumaki and everything else." Mika nodded, and Hideki was a little surprised by his sudden demeanor. He was about to advise the child to be respectful, but he stopped when the lad with the enormous glowing kunai on his shoulder gave him a cold glare that made his skin crawl. "All right, these children were raised without a village or a house. It's best to avoid berating them excessively, however, still. Will you show us? We've been everywhere, and I want to know." An elderly man named Jiraiya informed me that this town was Light's only ally, which is why I came here. I assumed you would know something. Mika gave a nod. "You're right. I do possess some information, primarily on Kokodo Uzumaki and his actions in producing the hidden light. However, you ought to have visited Iwa. They had all the information you needed and the best responses." Mika then produced a big brown scroll and waved it at Naruto. Iwa's emblem was used to embellish the rather frayed scroll. His eyes opened at the title, and he flipped it over several times, causing his companions to crowd around him. "What is the background of the man named Kokodo and the treacherous Uzumaki clan? What does this signify?" With a sorrowful sigh, Mika remarked, "Open the scroll and you will know." Naruto followed instructions after swallowing the lump in his throat. This is it, he thought, not noticing the Kumo shinobi holding their breath as the scroll unwound. After he recovered from his shock, Naruto wasted no time. He must have known. He had come from all over the world to find out this information. After taking a deep, anxious breath, Naruto started. He was leaned in close by his colleagues. Bloodline limits are said to be gifts from Kami or the result of making pacts with demons. They claim that bloodline limits are the first ninjutsu, the very foundation of shinobi techniques today. That is the legend. However, if you are reading this scroll, be ready to disregard all of that right now, because I was present when the bloodline limit was created, and everything you believe you know about it is a bunch of nonsense made up by a group of conceited rich men and obese politicians. With a signature, the initial Tsuchikage after just one paragraph, Naruto's thoughts immediately focused on the final section, almost dropping the scroll in the process. Akira was the first to recover from her shock and touched Naruto on the shoulder. Ni-san. That implies. Yeah, I figured as much too. Then Naruto went on reading. Yes, it is accurate. I am aware of the Bloodline Limit's mother clan. Actually, when I met them, I had just turned 20.1. It was clear to Naruto and the others that they were becoming increasingly nervous, or that it was becoming more clear with every syllable. He read on. At first, I can't say that I truly trusted them. Come on, I mean. Seemingly out of the blue, they asked to join our town. Iwa was brand new, it had only been alive for 5 years. Our hamlet was small, and we were paranoid. We had previously been at odds with a village. They were a little, weary tribe of travelers, with 3 children who appeared to be about 8 years old and about 17 adults. They had beautiful green eyes and red hair. Nearly all of them wore white lab coats with a spiral on the back and spectacles. Despite their clear expertise in the medical field, they had such a stereotypically cheesy appearance that I couldn't help but laugh. That did not sit well with them. I recall meeting this clan's head. He had wild, spiky hair that seemed to glow like fire in the evening sun, and he was tall and lanky. He wore no glasses and had a beard. He appeared to be about my age, and his whole demeanor gave off the impression that he didn't take anything seriously. He introduced himself as Mitoko and told me about a new shinobi community that was in need of residents. He claimed that his tribe could give us a lot of power because they were nomads without a true home. Other villages might be jealous of the power I'm referring to. He just warned me that if I accepted them, everyone in Iwa would find out in around 5 years when I asked him what he meant. They stated that they had to first build a few items. I was interested and young. What may we get from the clan? At last, my curiosity won out and I nodded. After 2 days, a massive pile of documents, and a comprehensive record of all the clan members' names, the Uzumaki clan formally joined Iwagakure no Sato. What? Look guys, it was already obvious before we got to that part. Akira moaned as Raven, Tayuya, and Naturo all screamed simultaneously. Then her expression abruptly changed to one of dread. Wait. Oh no. Naruto appeared horrified as well. Iwa. Raven's protective arm over a shaky. Looking to Yuya was enough evidence to know what was going through his head, but he also seemed angry and rather satisfied, rather than repentant or horrified. It seemed as though the Uzumakis had a close relationship with Iwa that they wished to forget, and Sasuke and the other Kumo genin were unable to understand why they had behaved in that manner. Wow. Oh Kami. A wide-eyed Hinata thought. Hideki and Mika could only stare. What, you Uzumaki? San. With a dejected attitude, Naruto turned to face them and muttered, I'll tell you later. Hideki and Mika dropped it because they already knew what was happening, and Hinata also appeared to know, but the rest had no idea. Naruto inhaled deeply once more before carrying on with his reading. I wasn't let down. This clan is unlike anything I've ever seen. I never would have imagined what they showed me, no. It shouldn't be feasible. They battled fiercely, really. They demonstrated abilities I never would have imagined. Mitoko was the only one who didn't exhibit anything noteworthy. He informed me that his only skills were amazing stamina and vast chakra stores. However, seeing their skills firsthand was more than enough to make the other villages see the Iwa with greater regard. In just 5 short years, the Uzumaki dynasty and Iwa both rose to fame. The only village with such a distinctive clan was ours. A clan whose members could summon enormous amounts of chakra and shoot it from their fingers, or manipulate the air without the use of hand signals. Ninjutsu wasn't necessary for the Uzumaki clan. Their innate skills were more than sufficient. Iwa's notoriety kept expanding. The Uzumaki clan brought in a lot of money and assignments. Many flocked to Iwa to apply for citizenship, and soon we gained enough strength to be acknowledged as a great shinobi village whose leader could assume the title of Kage. So that's it. I always wondered how Iwa got so powerful so quickly, Tayuya replied. She learned a little of the history of the shinobi villages during her brief stay with Orochimaru, and even the snake Sanin was unaware of how quickly Iwa gained power. Nevertheless, Naruto ignored Tayuya and carried on reading. I was 20.6 and Mitoko was 27. He and I became very good friends as soon as he and his clan arrived, and I was correct to assume that Mitoko didn't take anything seriously because he was loud, irritable, and constantly making jokes. When Mitoko was serious, it was definitely time to be serious too. Arashi Uzumaki was Mitoko's kid, and like his father, he was a boisterous child who enjoyed stirring up trouble. He wore round spectacles, had the same flaming red hair as his tribe, never showed any interest in anything, and was constantly preoccupied with playing tricks on other people. But when the boy's eyes glazed over and his body froze at exactly 5 o'clock in the evening on his 13th birthday, I realized it was time to take things seriously, as evidenced by the expression on Midoko's face. I was completely perplexed by this now. Midoko nodded his head in agreement while maintaining a serious expression. It seemed as though something of tremendous importance had been disclosed to Arashi, and we both observed for 6 whole minutes as his countenance changed from one of dread to one of astonishment, wonder, understanding, and delight. What was going on? I couldn't figure it out. After picking up his son, Midoko turned to face me. I think it's time to let you know what the Uzumaki clan can grant the citizens of Iwa. After 5 years of waiting, I was astonished when Midoko told me to follow him to his clan house, and I did so without question. Oh, it's getting good, Raven grinned. Nothing was able to pull him and the rest of his small family away from the first Tsuchikage's story. Hinata grinned. When she read the scroll, she felt the same way. Inakuto and Izuki had the same thought. After clearing his throat, Naruto went on. When I looked at what Midoko had shown me, I almost had a stroke because I was unprepared for it. There were hundreds of computers, thousands of buttons, and innumerable diagrams of what appeared to be twisted double helixes with various color codes. I saw words I had never heard of before written on posters and walls, as well as journals and scrolls upon scrolls devoted to human anatomy. I also saw photographs of parts of the double helixes with the labels A, T, C, G, Ed, Ag, and Court. It was like some kind of code. The entire floor was lined with tables, each with a variety of complex devices and computer screens that showed the status of whatever was meant to be on those tables, which I assumed to be humans. There were hundreds of photographs of these codes, each arranged differently. Like bees continually tending to their high-tech hive, the Uzumaki clan members ran around, scrutinizing the double helixes and taking notes all the while. After giving me a quick glance, Midoko murmured, "Watch this," before setting his son down and starting to probe. "Son, what have you discovered?" Without hesitation, Arashi replied, "I've figured everything out. I now understand things that I never believed were conceivable. This is really awesome." "Tell me what DNA stands for," Midoko asked after nodding. "Deoxyribonucleic acid," Arashi remarked, grinning broadly. "What is the number of genes in the human genome?" "Around 25,000. How many chemical base pairings are there in the genetic code?" Midoko questioned his son after nodding. After giving it some serious thought, Arashi grinned and remarked, "There are 3 billion. "Now tell me, son, what are the repercussions of messing with the genetic structure?" Midoko asked with a smile. "The reprocesses are severe," Arashi retorted. "The physical body might undergo horrifying mutations if the genetic structure is altered. In addition to death, it could cause illness and mental abnormalities. Without the right tools or expertise, it is extremely risky for an amateur to do so." "But we aren't amateurs, are we?" Midoko asked with another smile. With a sly smile, Arashi grabbed a lab coat that was close by, shrank to his size, and glowed in a spiral pattern. "Know as the keepers of the ancient knowledge, we are the Uzumaki clan. We have the power to alter our species' DNA whichever we like." I wanted to scream out, but my voice box had died. What the hell did I get myself into when I accepted this clan into my village? I was starting to become afraid. And that's when I did have a blasted stroke. Words cannot express how I felt. "My goodness!" Tayuya shouted. "What does this whole thing mean?" Isaribi inquired. Looking up, Akira said, "I think I know," as Naruto saw the Hyesha triplets fingering the corners of their eyes and Sasuke and Hinata staring at Naruto while deep in concentration. He became abnormally interested in Naturo, Raven, and Tayuya. Hideki remarked, "Keep going, Uzumaki-san, things will get better." Naruto gave a nod and went on. "Friend, please calm down. I promise that what you see is in no way used to harm anybody," Midoko said, observing my expression and letting out a sigh. I said, "Explain," staring Midoko in the eyes. "What's happening, Midoko? How do you know so much about DNA, and what is all of this?" Naturally, I was interested since Midoko and his kid had talked about DNA in ways that no one had ever heard of. I obeyed and waited, and a little while later, I became the first person outside the Uzumaki clan to know their secret. Midoko laughed and instructed me to sit down because I was probably going to pass out when he finished telling me. The Uzumaki clan possesses a certain knowledge that dates back thousands of years before the shinobi era, when there were weapons capable of killing a biju, when ships flew through the sky at incredible speeds, when cities 6 times the size of the 3 main shinobi villages combined adorned the earth, when towers touched the sky, when shinobi were nothing more than over dramatic cartoons, and when technology was at its height. Around 1996, a group of scientists took on an apparently insurmountable challenge, and the public enthusiastically supported them because they, too, wanted to see if this was possible. With this new knowledge, diseases were completely eradicated, mental illnesses were cured, and people's lifespans increased. It was the golden age of humanity. However, the scientists were worried that once they died, this knowledge would be lost, so they did the only thing they could think of. They encrypted the knowledge into their own DNA structures so that it could be passed down through the generations. Mitoko told me that many people had wasted their lives to do this, but it was well worth it. I immediately recognized what Iwa possessed when I learned about the Human Genome Project, the full map of the human genetic code, and the capacity to reorganize DNA to produce unique skills. They were all made by the Uzumaki clan to show me what was possible. The clan came up with a name for these special powers because of their strength and amazingness, which gave our ninja the best advantages in battle. However, their power had a limit. They could only be used for a limited period of time because, like jutsus, they depleted chakra. I believe this was a precaution the Uzumakis put in place to prevent people from becoming overly dependent on them, but in any case, it was because of this and the way they were inherited. Genkei Kikii. That label was applied to these new skills. Naruto stared at the scroll after dropping it. M.My clan created the world's bloodline limits. My clan is the only reason anyone has all these special powers. I can't believe it. San, Akira murmured as she approached him, the possibilities for you are endless. Naruto just kept gazing endlessly into space. Yeah, it's pretty amazing. When I learned, Sasuke remarked, I was stunned as hell. After glancing at the scroll, Naruto went on. As the years passed, Mitoko and I got older. Many clans departed Iwa, bringing their bloodline constraints with them, and the Uzumaki clan gained notoriety and stature. Soon, surrounding villages were ablaze with rumors about these clans with strong skills suddenly appearing and joining. 30 years after Iwa's birth, the two clans, Uchiha and Tenju, established a hamlet they named Konohagakure no Sato. Eventually, the clans lost sight of their origins, and Mitoko's son Arashi assumed the role of clan leader. I'm 90 today, and I've seen a lot, so I've grown wise. The Uzumaki clan gave Iwa its power, and it gave the world its power. Tomorrow, my successor, a guy named Kotowa, will assume the position of second Tsuchikage. I hope Iwa keeps growing. With a signature, Kuroshima's Yukaten Sato, the first Tsuchikage of Iwagakure. After a whole minute of stillness, Tayuya finally spoke. You have some ancient information hidden away somewhere, and it will eventually come to the surface like a bloodline limit, isn't that right? With a shrug, Naruto remarked, I guess so. Stepping forward, Inakuto remarked, but that's not all. What? She has the second part of the scroll, the young Hyusha replied, pointing to Mika. It shows the journal kept by Kyokoto Uzumaki, which was found shortly after Hikari was destroyed. Naruto's gaze expanded. Are you interested in reading it? I would definitely like to read it. Mika grinned before she reached into her robes and took out a small black book, which was old and battered but still in good shape. On the cover was an image of a man in his mid-20s, wearing an open lab coat, with layered spiky red hair that reached his shoulders, a goatee, a well-trimmed mustache that stuck out to the sides with only a slight downward curve, and a broad smile on his face as he performed a mock salute. Indeed, that is Naruto's relative. Tayuya smiled as she put an arm around Raven's and gave Naruto a light slap on the shoulder, saying, he looks just as dopey as these two idiots act. Shut up, Naruto muttered, grinning as he accepted the book from Mika. All right, who wants to watch part 2? With a smile, Raven said. After clearing his throat, Naruto turned to the book. Age 11 is the first entry. Uzumaki Kyokoto is my name. My age is 11. I have something incredible to tell, but first, San gave me this journal to help me focus. My wisdom has awakened. It was incredible. When it occurred, I was honing my sealing skills. I felt like there was too much knowledge in my head. I had been looking forward to this day my entire life. I may now start my studies. I have a ton of awesome bloodline limit ideas. This is going to be fantastic. In addition to laughing, Naruto couldn't help but perspire. Must have been a big deal for all Uzumaki children, he remarked. Second entry. 12 years old. I don't understand why San and the other clan members keep calling me a genius and the first prodigy of the Uzumaki clan, but I love the attention. They always ask me if I think certain nucleic acids are paired up just right and other things like that. It's entertaining because nobody else, possibly with the exception of San, receives this much attention, and it makes me feel cool. Age 12 is the third entry. San passed away today. He was simply too old to continue living. I believe he was 70.2 years old, and he never really showed his age. The entire village held a lavish funeral for him, and a statue of him was erected next to the first Tsuchikage in Midoko.oji. San. I don't understand why Uzumakis like to have children when they're old. Perhaps it's in our genetic makeup to want children when we're about to die, just as 90% of us are destined to wear glasses. Oh well, I'll miss you. Arashi too. San. Try not to mutate angles with bloodline limits up there. The page was stained with a few tears. Though they had never met, Naruto felt a connection to Kokodo because he reminded him of himself. At this point, he laughed and wiped a tear from his eye. Fourth entry. 13 years old I started learning seals, ninjutsu, and kenjutsu. The clan looks up to me as their leader, and I won't let them down. I'll be the best guy alive, hee. Iwa's clans left to become clans of other villages years ago, so I don't blame the Naidame when he asked if we could create a bloodline limit for them today. The others are currently debating whether or not we should, and I think we should. I also have the ideal bloodline limit in mind, which involves having mouths in your hands that can transform clay into living, explosive animals. It's going to be sweet. All I need to do now is figure out the proper nucleic acid arrangement and the number of chromosomes, and I'm good to go. But why did the Naidame ask for that so abruptly? Without a number of clans that use bloodlines moving about, Iwa has been doing well. That is, if you don't include us. Still, though. Well, anything. In order to determine whether my initial idea will succeed, I hope the old geezers say yes. Fifth entry. 14 years old I now understand why I am referred to as a prodigy, as I have a far deeper understanding of DNA than any other member of the Uzumaki clan. I can decipher any genetic code that is shown to me immediately, create DNA sequences that would grant a person amazing bloodline limits in a matter of minutes, and I seem to have an insatiable thirst for more. I am awake while the other members are sleeping, constantly studying and taking notes, breaking down codes and creating new ones. I have created blueprints to enough bloodline limits to make a single village powerful enough to take on the world, which excites me. Initially, the C4 bloodline proved to be a great asset for Iwa, and now this. Not that I'm attempting to conquer the globe or anything, but I wonder if I can establish my own town and make it the best in the world. The possibilities are unlimited. Naruto's eyes narrowed at this. Entry 6, 14 years old. About a week ago, the Tsuchikage and I went to the Hidden Cloud, where I met the most gorgeous girl in the world. I never imagined that such a girl could exist. Her name is Mika, and she aspires to be the Raikage someday. She has dark tan skin, purple hair, and golden eyes. She was so perfect that I had to speak with her. So I did. She has a lot of energy and a great sense of humor, and even though we don't have much in common, we got along great. When she told me about her goal, I smiled and told her that she could do it, and she smiled brightly. I fell in love right then and there because no other girl has a smile that is so incredibly radiant that I had to see it again. The Raikage and the Tsuchikage caught us making out in the office one day and then again in the hot springs, where she had sneaked over to the guy's side after all the other guys had left and we had a couple hours of lip lock action. Hehe, nosebleed, not a pervert. Mika and I grew really close over the course of the next 2 weeks. I swear on my name as a bloodline maker that I shall see that angel again. In any case, Mika told me she would be waiting when I promised her I would see her again when it was time to part ways. When Naruto looked up, he noticed that Mika was trying to cover her face with her cage hat, but she was burning red. Don't look at me. Finish reading. Everyone laughed at this, and the Raikage's blush deepened. Tayuya exclaimed, "Wait a second, the Raikage knew Kokodo? How's this possible?" Akira exclaimed with a sigh, "Think about it. Kokodo started this journal when he was 11. Making it only like 35 years old, which would make Raikage Sama and Kokodo around 48. Hideki gave a nod. As he said, "That was impressive, Akira." Akira simply shrugged. "It's time to read more now," Raven stated. Naruto gave a nod. Age 14 is the 6th entry. The way the Tsuchikage have been speaking to us lately bothers me. I'm going to be mad at him. I'm not sure what's bothering him. He mocks us and enters anytime he wants. As he strolls around and examines our house, his eyes gleam with a feeling I've never witnessed before. I know he's the Tsuchikage, but he needs to calm down. I'm not a patient person. Age 15 is the 6th entry. That's it, I can't stand it. I killed my 42nd foreign spy. A quarter of our technology has already been stolen, and many documents have vanished. This is getting old, and the worst part is that I know what's going on. The Tsuchikage has spread the word about the Uzumaki clan, and I don't care about that. It's just his motivation. The Tsuchikage is selling us out for profit. He's letting enemy ninja enter Iwa and infiltrate our compound and getting paid for it, and he's letting our secrets be stolen like common gold. I'm furious. Those idiots couldn't possibly establish a stable bloodline limit without the necessary knowledge. This is an outrage. They don't know what they're dealing with. It's very dangerous shit. Age 15 is the 7th entry. The Uzumaki clan has been reduced to nothing. The walls are bare, the notes, photos, and documents have all been deleted or destroyed, and we are a pitiful shadow of our former selves. O2. San, what should I do? It will take years to recreate all of that, and to top it all off, he demands another bloodline limit. Fuck him. He gets no more bloodline limits from us. My anger and hatred for the Tsuchikage are growing every day. I believe that a change of scenery is in order. Age 15 is the 8th entry. I gave them my answer the very next day in the form of the Tsuchikage's head. I had killed the idiot and severed his head from his body with my sword. That bastard underestimated me. I took the clan and left Iwa in ruin. The clan looked to me for answers. Their eyes were so lost and hopeless looking. Their drive had been stolen from them. It made me sad and angry. Iwa, keep this in mind as a personal lesson. This is the result of becoming very avaricious and conceited. Learn from your stupid leader and rebuild, and develop without the Uzumaki's help. As I turned and walked away, I yelled at them and never glanced around again. Age 20 for entry 9. The world has shown them how stupid they are. I have witnessed attempts to replicate the Uzumaki clan's genius. It is not pretty. Abominations were created. I tried to warn them, but they ignored me. Now, monsters are running wild and have killed a lot of people. They deserve to die. The clan and I have been hunting them down and restoring their bodies and mutilated chromosomes to normal, which has led to the acquisition of new allies. The majority of the attempts to establish bloodline limits were made on homeless people and poor children. I felt sorry for them and offered them refuge within our clan. And as we travel the world, I come to despise, even despise, the shinobi villages. They need to be brought down to earth, and I know exactly what I'm going to do. I'll build a village. I'll elevate the Uzumaki clan to a level of greatness that has never been seen before. Yes, that's what I'll do. This village will shine like a beacon of hope at night and disappear from view during the day. I'll make my village the most powerful and feared village in the land. The world wants bloodline limits so badly that they will regret ever crossing the Uzumaki clan. Come world, I await you in the future. Naruto continued to read with an increasingly dejected expression. He's warping, Akira remarked, looking similarly. Mika let out a sorrowful sigh. He was sometimes resentful and vindictive because he saw the world for what it really is. It still makes me sad. 10th entry. Age 21. My village is called Hikaragakure no Sato, and we have been thriving for 6 months now. We are already well known, and the other villages view us as a rising power, which makes them both skeptical and respectful of us at the same time. Few people are aware of the Uzumaki clan anymore, and we didn't show off our skills. In addition, history has become so distorted that no one would think my clan is to blame for the development of the powers they so haughtily wield. I am a pretty hardened person. My clan has been through a lot, but we have recovered. Our grounds are bustling with activity again, and there are countless documents, note machines, and photographs all over the walls and floors. The children are anticipating the day when their knowledge awakens, and I can feel some of the joy I once lost coming back. My community is doing well, and we are not concerned about the increasing concern that the other villages are showing for us. The people of the village also appear to be living it up. 11th entry. 27 years old Hikaragakure is now regarded as one of the great shinobi villages, second only to Konoha. Oh, yes. My plan is coming closer to reality every day. I have welcomed nearly 3,000 people into my village, and they have voluntarily chosen to be subjected to my experiments. I have a lot of plans for bloodline limits, and I can't wait to wow the world with them. My favorite creation to date is Tenshi Hikari, which is my own invention that enables one to make wings and a weapon out of sunlight, as well as magnificent weapons out of light. Infused metal. I am skilled enough in seals to be able to achieve such feats. The weapons I will make will absorb sunlight and, with the right words, release that light, infused with chakra to create incredible bursts of energy. Arashi 2. San and Mitoko. Oji. San became powerful without any bloodline limitations other from tremendous stamina and enormous chakra. The clan offered that I gain myself that ability, but I refused. I am Kokodo, and I shall demonstrate my might to the world. After reading that section, Naruto and the others let out a sorrowful sigh. What did Kokodo do, Mika-san? Naruto didn't want to think that the world had a good cause for destroying Hikari, therefore he was scared to read on. Just keep reading. Mika shook her head when she noticed Naruto's expression. Age of entry 12. 27. Even though my village has only been there for 6 years, the threat of war has already materialized. My creations, the bounds of Hikarigaku's lineage, have scared those deluded fools, and Hikarigaku has grown to be the most powerful. My village is talked about all over the world. And the Uzumaki clan's greatness is known once more. The leaders of the other shinobi villages call me a freak, deny the history, and denigrate our clan and our ability to create bloodline limits. It saddens me to see how far the first bloodlines my clan created have fallen. The Uchiha and the Hyuga have become haughty and conceited. The Tenju is gone. The Kagaya and the wielders of the crystal ice are in danger of being attacked from within their own village. I will go to the leaders of the other villages and explain the origins of the bloodline limit. Maybe that will calm them down a little. I do not wish for war, but if they continue, I will retaliate to the best of my abilities. You can probably predict what transpired there, don't you? With tears in her eyes, Mika asked. 3 entries remained, and Naruto nodded while bending his head and gazing into the scroll. Entry number 13. 27 years old. I was pleasantly delighted to see the Raikage, who was just as lovely as she had been all those years ago, standing elegantly in the robes that symbolized her power. I had not expected to see an old face at the cage's gatherings, so I was pleasantly startled when I locked eyes with her. Hi Mika. After a few minutes, I took Mika out of my arms and spoke to the other 7 village leaders, Aim, Taki, Kusa, Konoha, Iwa, Kiri, and Suna. You did it, I said, and Mika jumped into my arms, gasping. I had never been happier to see someone in my life. The memory of this angel had faded due to all those years of hardship, but they returned with full force in that moment. My power and the power of Hikarigaku are far too great for their own good, they told me, and it would cause problems for the other villages when everyone was trying to hire a Hikari shinobi over others. They reacted angrily when I told them about the origins of the bloodline limit, the abilities of my clan, and the proposal of an end to this Cold War. They told me the following. No. They demanded that if what I say is true, then I was to give a few of my clan members to them so that they too could create more bloodline limits for them. I told them that I don't care about their worries, that if they were tired of my village's strength, it was their responsibility to become stronger themselves, that I wouldn't sell out my clan members, and that I wasn't like the second Tsuchikage. They expressed their displeasure, warned me that I would regret my choice, and gave me a month to change my mind. I will now return to my room since Mika-chan has sided with me and I cannot let her to face the impending war. I will persuade her to return to Kumo. Age at entry 14. 28. I stand cold-eyed atop the Hikirikage Tower, with the whole village at my feet, as we can all see the distant glow of torches and hear the distant cries of hundreds of thousands of enemy ninja as they march upon us. Mika-chan is standing next to me, and although I am happy that someone genuinely cares, I am also concerned because I don't want Mika and her village to suffer the same fate as my village is about to suffer. I miscalculated. I didn't expect 7 full-blown shinobi villages to declare war upon my village and me. Are they that blinded by their fear? Are they that jealous of what I have? They all already have great gifts, yet they want more. I won't let that happen. I have already created a scroll containing all of Hikari's secrets and hidden it. I have destroyed all of the creations of the Uzumaki clan. They will get nothing. I have made sure of that. They won't even get Hikari's weapons. I wanted to show the world my power, the power of Hikari, the greatness of the Uzumaki clan. If fighting with every fiber of my being and unleashing the powers of my creations upon them is the only way to do it, then so be it. Iwa Tsuchikage will die first. I'll see personally to that. Then I'll kill that bastard of a Hokage. The old fool seems nice, but he let the others influence him. He spouts out the mouth about the will of fire. I'll snuff it out. I am Kokodo Uzumaki, the hero from the realm of light, and I'm tired of the whole fucking world. Mika, Hinata, Isaribi, and Naruto were all crying. Kokodo wrote those phrases with such enthusiasm. Those words were so full of emotion. Mika had fallen to her knees, sobbing so hard that her whole body trembled. Oh Kokodo-kun, I miss you so much. Mika was hugged by Naruto, who assured her that everything was okay and that Kokodo would be pleased that she could lead a happy life. Mika simply brushed away her tears and nodded. All right, just 1 entry left. It was Kokodo Uzumaki's last words, the culmination of this whole situation, and the moment of truth. Before starting to read, Naruto took one final glance at Mika. He saw that the paper had old bloodstains on it. Age at entry 15. 28. They hammer at the doors behind me while I sit here and gaze at the lone little girl's form lying on a makeshift operating table. It has now been almost a year. Hikari has fallen, but before we destroyed half of their army, hey. I was clearly underestimated. Stupid people. However, we were overwhelmed because Hikari simply lacked the numbers they did. Their irate shouts, demanding that I come out and reveal myself, are audible to me. They will undoubtedly torture me to discover where I have concealed all of my secrets. Mika. Chan was on the run. I almost made her do it. I won't let her die, even though she didn't want to. The clan of Uzumaki has perished. Only this small baby and I remain. They killed everyone. I worry if Kami will punish me for my decision. To be honest, I can't say that I truly care. I would be happy to spend the remainder of eternity in hell if Kami believes that the life I have chosen is incorrect. I need no one to judge me. I'm short on time. I shall die in this room from my wounds, but I'm not going to give up. The Uzumaki clan's legacy will be continued by this one girl. Her DNA structure has a code that I have encoded. It is something her first son will inherit. The code functions almost like a wild card. The code will only activate under the correct set of circumstances. I demonstrate my artistic genius once more. Something this complex could only have been created by me. The code resembles an unfinished puzzle. It is intended to be incredibly adaptable. Anything could serve as a piece of a puzzle. Additionally, a deadly new bloodline limit will activate after all the gaps have been filled with appropriate pieces. The bloodline limit is unknown to me. All I have done is lay the foundation for the creation. This girl's kid will have to decide which pieces will work. This little girl. I'm aware that I'm not entitled to apologize to her. I'm not worthy of her pardon. Sealing off her knowledge is the only thing I can do for her and the prestige of the Uzumaki. She won't be aware of her ancestry. She will never understand how to work with DNA. Those jerks are probably not so vicious as to murder a defenseless baby daughter. They've already killed everyone else, so I realize it's a risk. And once they realize that she will never understand how to establish bloodline boundaries, I suppose they won't murder her. One sentence stuck out among the many bloodstains and tears that were blotting out the next words. I've named the girl Kushina, or Kushina Uzumaki. She is the mother of the new Uzumaki clan. I hope you're happy. And to her son, please bring our lovely clan back and ensure they never suffer again. Signed, Uzumaki Kokodo. Not a word was spoken, not even to Yuya, who had fallen into Raven's arms, spoke. Mika approached Naruto and touched him on the shoulder. A hired ninja from the Whirlpool country found Kushina next to Kokodo's body. He chose to assist in the destruction of Hikari because, like many others, he had resentment toward the Uzumaki clan, but he was also intelligent. In the hopes that she would someday establish genetic boundaries for his nation, he brought the daughter back to the realm of Whirlpool and reared her as his own. Although she developed into a lovely young lady, her wisdom never came to the surface. A massive conflict broke out between all of the shinobi communities after that. The overall disillusionment directed toward Kushina was quickly ignored in favor of focusing on surviving. At the age of 15, she learned about a remarkable young man who had destroyed Iwa's army all by himself. Minato Namikaze, a formidable ninja from Konohagakure no Sato, was his name. She fell in love at once. 2 months before Whirlpool was destroyed, she left to meet Minato. With a loving smile, Mika added, Kushina Uzumaki married Minato Namikaze 4 years after they met. Naruto listened intently, certain that he was missing something. Naruto's gaze expanded. Kushina, is she my mom? Mika nodded, as I would expect, but what really caught me off guard is how much you resemble the Yondaime Hokage. It was the only thing Naruto could do. What? Mika merely gave a nod. I'm sorry you had to find out like this, Naruto. The worried Naturo questioned, what will you do now, San? Naruto clenched his fists and cast his gaze downward. Tears were pouring down his cheeks and into Kyokodo's journal still. Unopened pages. We're going to Hikaragakure. In her dream, Hanabi would play carefree in the village with her lost sister, a young Kimimaro, Kin, and Haku. In her dream, no one was pursuing them and they had no clans to adhere to. She dreamed that she could do as she pleased and that she laughed and played without constant bodyguards breathing down her neck. That was always Hanabi's dream. Being free was the only thing she ever desired. She was free because she could create her own path. Without someone telling her no because it would be too risky, she should make her own decisions. She had no contact with the outside world and was completely starved. She didn't scream when she woke up and met the eyes of a pair of golden snake orbs that looked scarier than an activated Byakugan. Instead, she exclaimed, "A stranger," with a broad, joyful smile. She enjoyed making new friends. It was her only means of getting outside. The fact that the man who was staring at her had come in the middle of the night and was competent enough to evade all the sentries didn't matter to her. Hell, she started asking the man a ton of questions without even seeming to realize how dangerous she was. "Who are you? What's your name? Are you a ninja? How strong are you? How are your eyes so pretty like that? Do you know Hokage? Sama? Can I ever get my hair as nice as yours? Those purple lines on your face make you look cool. I'm Hanabi Hyuga, what's yours?" In fact, the girl took Orochimaru by surprise. So much so that when he eventually recovered, he couldn't help but laugh as he interrupted her unending speech with a hand. After rubbing her cheek, he said, My, such an excitable one you are." He made her blush. "You poor dear, you're starved of life, aren't you? Been cooped up in this stuffy old room for most of your life, haven't you?" How did you know?" Hanabi asked, his eyes widening. Orochimaru's grin widened as I can see it in those beautiful eyes. You've been denied your own destiny, my child. Left out as the world grows around you. Tell me, my dear, how old are you?" Hanabi's whole face flushed as he said, 8. This stranger had such charm. "Oh, 8 years old and you've never seen outside of Konoha? Your parents must be very protective of you." Hanabi regained her composure and grinned. "Why? Yeah. Father said I have a sister that was kidnapped 5 years ago. He's afraid that's gonna happen again." The man's face then took on a sinister expression, and Hanabi grew more cautious. How would you like to see the outside world, young Hanabi-chan? To escape from this prison and bask in your long-awaited freedom?" These words caused Hanabi's brain to shut down. There was no way. It appeared to be ideal. This could not possibly be a dream. It wasn't a dream, though. This was actually taking place. A visitor had arrived to introduce her to the outside world. Her silent desire had been noticed by someone. For a moment, Orochimaru felt a similar emotion inside of him as he watched the girl's face change from shock to disbelieving to so radiantly happy. He couldn't help but chuckle at the other Hyuga clan members. They lacked experience in areas like children's needs. They were only concerned with maintaining their status and image. Even if it meant protecting their heiress in a depressing effort to lessen the likelihood that their priceless bloodline limit would be taken. With a single glance into the girl's eyes, he was able to determine the answer before she did. "Yes, I would like that very much, please. I want to be free, I want to see the world. Are you truly gonna do this for me?" With a smile, Orochimaru used one of his pale fingers to wipe the girl's teary eyes away. "Of course, my dear. I would not be here if that was not my plan. I will take you from Konoha, and once I have the thing that I want from you, you can do whatever you want." With a gasp of sheer delight, Hanabi threw herself at Orochimaru, embracing him as tightly as her tiny arms would allow. Thank you so much. When can we leave?" Orochimaru couldn't resist giving a sadistic grin. This should have been a crime against nature itself because it was so incredibly simple. However, he has previously committed such offenses. "We can leave right now," he said, picking up the young girl in bridal fashion before disappearing through Shunshin, oblivious to the horrified gaze of onlookers. Change of scene. As he and the others gazed at an irate Uzumaki Naruto, Raven asked in confusion, Why are we going back to the Hidden Light Village?" Next up was Naturo. "I agree. Shouldn't we head to Konoha to get more answers? I'm sure the old man will be glad to tell you what he knows. Besides, I'm positive that Jiraiya guy has already told the Hokage of us, and no doubt that we're here in Kumo," Akira replied. Without saying a word, Naruto simply kept his grip on his ancestor's journal. A reassuring hand was resting on Hinata's shoulder. At last, he said something. "We're going to restore the Hidden Light Village, then train there in secret for a while. I'm positive that we didn't get everything when we were in that village the last time. No doubt the place had hundreds of genjutsu hidden secret storage rooms, weapons, and even the materials and blueprints to the numerous bloodline limits Kokodo was planning to create." Many pairs of eyes widened at this. "We're going to study every aspect of the human genome and gain immense knowledge concerning it. We will help Isaribi with her unstable bloodline limit and figure out how to work the machines. Then when our knowledge awakens, we will go to Konoha and confront the old man. If a fight breaks out, well, then a fight breaks out." Mika questioned, "But why wait to go to Konoha?" When Naruto finally raised his head, his crimson demonic eyes startled everyone in the room. "Because if I go there now, I might raise the place to the ground." Izuki laughed and replied, "Wow, yeah, maybe going to the Leaf isn't a good thing right now. But I wonder how you plan to restore the Light Village with only 5 or 6 of you." Not 6, Sasuke said, taking a step forward. 8, Hinata said as she moved forward as well. Wah? Sasuke grinned. Listen, we didn't spend the last 5 years looking for you, ditching Konoha and lending a hand in the creation of a powerful bloodline clan for Kumo just so we could spend a few days with you. We're going with you. But, Mika smiled and said, don't worry, to Naruto. I already approved this. Sasuke and Hinata are not bound to Kumo, they can leave whenever they want. Hinata remarked, yeah, but we like it here. Kumo is a nice place, we will always stand by this village's side, but we will stand by your side even more, Naruto. Sasuke spoke for Naruto and his group because they were at a loss for words. With a slight smirk, he remarked, a simple, we'd love to have you on the team would suffice. Alright, fine. You can come. Hell, you all can if y'all want, seeing as you're all involved in this too, Naruto said with a playful glare. At Naruto's announcement, Yugito, Izuki, Inakuto, Ikimu, and Hideki all grinned, but regrettably, only Yugito took the initiative. Naruto asked silently why the Hyesha triplets hadn't moved, and Ikimu replied. Besides Sasuke, Sama and Hinata. Sama, Izuki, Inakuto and I are the oldest and strongest members of the Hyesha clan. We will stay behind and look after the clan while you are away. Izuki laughed and replied, though I am a bit miffed that you three get to see a legendary village and everything. Now we're gonna have to train extra hard to keep up with you guys. Mika approached Naruto with tears in her eyes as there was some laughter. She bent over and gave the boy a firm embrace. Naruto, I want you to know that you have my full support. Kumo will stand by you in the hidden light once again. Naruto smiled broadly and hugged the woman back. Thanks, Mika-san. That means a lot, especially since we didn't really have nay allies before. Grinning, the Raikage got back to his feet. You're so much like Kyokodo-kun. You'll do great things, Naruto. You and your siblings. In Yugito, speaking of which, butted. You never did tell us what was up with your siblings and what your involvement was in Iwa. The group then heard Naruto look up with a hint of sadness and sigh. Well, as you all know, I was treated like shit in Konoha back in the day, so I left. The people there refused to let me have anything, including friends. I was 6, so my natural logic was to go find somewhere where I could find friends. It was actually quite easy to get out of Konoha. Their security sucks. Izuki and Raven both laughed a little. Anyway, after about a week or two, the Kyuubi contacted me out of the blue. Literally, and decided to try and make me feel despair. She obviously didn't know who she was talking to back then, and it ended up with her teaching me the shadow clone technique instead. Hideki, Yugito, and Mika all gasped at this, and Inakuto and Izuki went up to prod at Raven, Akira and Naturo. No way. You're saying these guys are shadow clones? Yes, now get your damn hands off of me. Raven screamed as he used a wing to bat Inakuto away. Naruto chuckled before returning to his seriousness. But that's not all. Kyuubi made them permanent that day and even suggested the idea for using items for bloodline limits for Raven and Naturo. For a while I questioned what gave her that idea, but now I think I know. Mika looked up thoughtfully and nodded. Your knowledge. Even though it hasn't awakened for you yet, Kyuubi was able to find it in your genetic structure and mind and used it herself to make sure the bloodline limits for your siblings were perfect. Naruto gave a nod. Yeah, that's what I thought too after I read Kyokodo's journal. So anyway, that's the story. No it ain't, Izuki said, intruding once more into Naruto's private area. Y'all still didn't tell us what happened to Iwa. Akira, Naturo, and Naruto all sighed as Raven took Tayuya's hand. We destroyed it. There was nothing more to say. Those who hadn't figured it out yet looked wide-eyed and gasped. You used the Kyuubi, huh? Naruto gave a nod. Yeah. Raven used the most. They had captured and experimented on Tayuya. Hearing her horrible screams caused him to snap. But how did you manage to take on an entire major shinobi village? Even with the Kyuubi, that should have been impossible, especially for a bunch of toddlers. The always perceptive Akira said, hey, we weren't toddlers, we were children. One level above that stage, and anyway, we won mainly because Naturo's metal and the Kyuubi's chakra protected us from like 95% of the harm. Sasuke and Hinata were among the Kumo ninjas who gazed in wonder at Naruto. He's the Jinchuriki, for the most powerful of the Biju. Heir to a clan that can create, destroy and even enhance any bloodline limits, and he can make living clones of himself. Wow, you certainly will be a very desired man when you're older, Naruto. Heh. Hideki grinned as he watched Hinata put a possessive hand on Naruto, who was chatting with Sasuke and Yugito without noticing. As he looked more closely at the three clones, Ikimu unexpectedly asked, So will the knowledge awaken for them too? Ya no. I don't really know. They can use the Kyuubi's chakra like me, so who knows? They're my clones, so I'd say yeah. Man, that'd be sweet, Raven said, and he grinned. Isaribi remained partially concealed behind Naruto's medal, manipulating brother because she was still hesitant and bashful around all of these strangers. However, she was relieved to know that she wasn't an outsider and that there were a lot of different people in the world. She was eager to begin training with them. But for the time being, she simply chose to wrap her arms around Naturo's left arm and remain largely hidden. So anyway, I think we've wasted enough of your time, Raikage, Sama, so we'll be leaving now. Mika gave Naruto a gentle pat on the head and laughed at his unwillingness to accept her as someone to be respected. Naruto, you don't have to be formal. Call me Mika. Naruto smiled at the woman and nodded, saying, anyway, we're going to be leaving. I appreciate the information about my clan. This is the return of your boyfriend's journal. Mika returned the journal with a smile and said, Naruto, keep it. Your ancestor left it to you, and it may be of further use to you. As he took back Kyokodo's old journal, Naruto simply waved to the Hyesha triplets and grinned, saying, it was fun, you guys. While we're away, make sure you get nice and strong. In this manner, when we visit, we won't be able to completely kick your asses. And don't be concerned. I will closely monitor your leaders. Naruto turned to his group, which now included Sasuke, Hinata, Isaribi, Tayuya, Raven, Akira, and Naturo. Izuki giggled, Inakuto smiled broadly, and Ikimu grunted. All right, let's go. We have a lot of work to do. How long will we be living in isolation in the Light Village, Naruto-kun? Hinata blushed as Naruto flashed a bright, dashing smile. The group nodded and started to leave, saying, we'll take an active role in the world just until my knowledge awakens. Be careful. Mika said, all of you. Naruto just smiled and escorted his group out, passing through Kumo and returning to the outside world. I'm gonna miss him, Izuki remarked. Who? Sama Sasuke. Or Naruto. Don't you have a thing for Naruto? Ha 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 ha. Stop talking, idiot. I'm not infatuated with Naruto. I have idiots for siblings, Ikimu muttered, letting out a simple sigh. Neither Mika nor Hideki, nor Naruto's group, would learn of what was going on in Konoha until much later, so they simply watched the scene with amusement. Change of scene. Heishi was crying, and the entire Hyuga clan, along with nearly every ninja in Konoha, were up and running all over, covering every inch of Konoha in a desperate search for the recently unaccounted for Hyuga Hanabi. The Hokage himself hadn't been this vigilant since the last Uchiha and the previous Hyuga heiress had vanished. Suddenly, a young branch member named Neji burst into Hieshi's sleeping quarters, shouting about Hanabi. Sama and a pale-skinned stranger who was luring her to leave with him. Heishi woke everyone up after giving a brief description of the stranger. We must locate them, he shouted in a terrified tone. Change of scene. Aside from Heishi, 3 people were most affected by this. Kin Kimimaro and Haku ran through the village as quickly as they could, their eyes burning with righteous rage, Zanbatus and bloodlines active, making everyone who saw them wince and move out of their way as quickly as they could. They were furious. Who would dare kidnap little Hanabi? Not under their watch. Zabuza was somewhere else, probably helping the Hokage try to calm everyone down. They were moving down the middle of the village when 3 kunai embedded themselves in the ground in front of them, so they skidded to a stop and looked around. They ignored everything else around them and communicated with hand signals. Their teamwork was flawless. Hi, you 3. Meeting all 3 of you is a tremendous honor. Haku Momochi, Kimimaro Kagaya, and Kin Suchi. From the roof of a civilian house, the 3 teenagers looked up to see a silver-haired teen with glasses grinning down at them. Who are you? The boy's smirk only deepened as he pushed his glasses up his nose, a move that irritated all 3 of them. Asked Kimimaro in his monotonous voice. Well, you ask, who am I? I have a lot of answers for you. I could tell you my name, rank, and even my place of origin. I could also say that I am a strong ninja's right hand man, and lastly, I could admit that I am the one who is responsible for the Hyuga girl's disappearance. He had to leap to the side as soon as he finished that final sentence to avoid being sliced in 2 by Kin's Zanbatu. Hanabi. Chan is where? Inform us or perish. A spear of bone pierced the boy's upper arm, causing him to gasp after laughing at his fist. Kimimaro scowled and uttered, we do not joke, foolish scum. Why don't you follow me and find out? The boy said, laughing as he jerked himself off the bone and turned to run. The boy was having a hard time, with vines, ice balls, and bone spears constantly coming at him, but he had managed to do his job, and when they reached a clearing, he turned to face the three. The three wasted no time in chasing the stranger, weaving in and out of crowds, jumping over houses, and circling other terrified ninjas before they finally chased him out into the forests. Kin, Kimimaro, and Haku, hehehe. Greetings on this final day of your liberty. Vines sprung from her forearm and wound down and around the handle of her blade, and her hair turned green and reshaped to resemble a reptilian tail. Kin snorted and raised her sword, with grass from the ground and leaves from trees growing and condensing on her shoulders to form a pair of enormous dragon-like wings. Haku's skin turned blue, his hair hardened, his blade was covered in an almost imperceptible layer of ice, and the air around him grew much colder. The arm that held his Zanbadu also became covered in a layer of bone, and Kimimaro had bone spikes grow from his shoulders, kneecaps, and spine to form a bony, bladed tail. After examining the three, the boy smiled even wider and said, "You three have been training, haven't you?" Haku lunged at the boy in response. Now, no need to get antsy, our main guest of honor will be here in a second." "What?" Kin inquired. "Anyone else?" "Of course," the boy said, laughing. "Did you really believe that I was the only one causing all of the excitement? When the Hokage described the person you were supposed to be searching for, did you not pay attention?" The three gasped when they finally understood after a brief pause. "You three are correct. Orochimaru Sama wants you as a prize." Knowing exactly who this nin was, Kin spoke shakily, But what would that freak want with any of us or Hanabi, Chan?" A huge snake sprang from the forest behind them, and Orochimaru, holding a grinning Hanabi, stood on the snake's head as they abruptly tensed and leapt to the side. "Kukakuku, tell me what I'm looking for." Then Orochimaru coughed up the kusanagi, a glowing blue sword, and laid Hanabi on the ground beside the boy, licking his lips and grinning down at the three. "I want your Kiki Genkei." Ninjas were still frantically searching for the missing Hyuga heiress, but it was all in vain, she was gone. Heishi was a broken, sobbing mess. He kept blaming himself for this, saying that it was his fault for pushing his children away. He was walking sullenly through the village, ignoring everything around him, when the Hokage appeared in front of him, looking grave. It was 8 in the morning, and Konohagakure was still in a state of panic. "Heishi. Dono, I think we have a lead," he stated. Kakashi picked up the scents of Kin, Kimimaro, Haku and another person heading into the forests. The old cage smiled warmly and said, "Come on." Hiashi's heart leapt. If anyone could win his daughter back, it was those three. Heishi gave a nod and left with the elderly man. They arrived at a clearing in the forest that, to be honest, appeared to have been the scene of a battle between two groups of 100 men. The whole area was covered in craters, scorch marks, and uprooted and broken trees. There were patches of ice everywhere, huge spears of bone protruding from the trees in the ground, massive flowers and vines lying dead everywhere, blood spattered in 6 different places, and so many shuriken and broken kunai lying around that the Hokage honestly thought for a moment that 100 men were present. The 3 massive Zanbadis stabbed into the ground and a scroll in front of them, however, were what almost stopped his heart. "Who the fuck did this?" snarled Zabuza, who had been with the small group of ninja. The Hokage had a thought, and when he read the letter, which made him gasp, his suspicions were confirmed. "Sensei Sarutobi, you're a very astute person, aren't you? It never occurred to me that you could be so deviant. To think that you had the Hyouden, Kusaryu, and dead bone pulses all safely concealed in Konoha all this time. However, I must question how you managed to acquire such unique treasures." "Well, whatever. It doesn't really matter because you've greatly simplified my work. I also have to say that you did a great job training them." They tore off an arm and tore out 2 ribs, almost killing Kabuto-kun. "But I must scowl at you because they frightened poor Hanabi-chan." "Kukakuku. Don't worry, though, I'll fix her. I'll show her what freedom feels like and brighten her world. I'll take what I need from her after that. In fact, I'm fairly certain she'll be willing to give it to me. I'll let her go after that. We'll all know who the better father was if she stays here, won't we? Kukakuku. I have to express my gratitude to Sarutobi Sensei for these amazing presents. At once, 4 bloodline limits. I just need to locate the younger Uchiha and the siblings of the Kyuubi child, and everything will be fine. I shall become a god. Kukakukuku. Farewell, Sensei. Farewell, Heishi. Sanzabuza, goodbye. Until we cross paths again." Sarutobi read the letter 3 times over before dropping it so that Heishi and Zabuza could read it and also gasp. It was unbelievable to him. Orochimaru, I'll get you. Heishi and Zabuza had made the same vow. Change of scene. Sasuke and Naturo were engaged in a staring match. Tayuya was supporting Raven, Akira, Yugito, and Isaribi were fishing, and Naruto and Raven were engaged in a brawl. Yeah. Kick his blonde ass, wing boy. With a frustrated sigh, Naruto used one of his swords to block a blow from one of Raven's sides. The blonde screamed, "We don't need a peanut gallery. Go do girl stuff or something," as he attempted to kick his brother in the head. 6 smoke tentacles sprang from Tayuya's shoulders and were directed directly at Naruto as she scowled. "Fucking asshole. You wanna say that again?" In response, Naruto struck the ground with his orange sword, causing a wall of earth to rise and deflect Tayuya's blow. "Yeah, I said go do girl stuff. I'll show you girl stuff." Naruto was now engaged in combat with Raven and Tayuya. After ducking beneath Tayuya's massive smoke fist, he leapt over Raven's side. "Huh? Y'all both suck. What was all that training with the kitsunes for? Huh?" With a scowl, Raven struck the ground with his transparent scythe. Demonic fox art. Raging foxfire. Naruto was struck by a huge wave of blue fire that erupted from the scythe and pierced the ground. Tayuya assisted by firing hundreds of smoke projectiles in the shape of kunai. Naruto exclaimed, "Crap. He believed he was crude." Until someone fell from the sky and began to spin. Kaden. The wave of smoke and fire crashed into and swirled around the massive dome of chakra, dispelling it as it sprang to life. When the Kaden subsided, Hinata was seen grinning. Naruto couldn't suppress a smile. "Huh? At least someone's on my side. Hinata and I are gonna kick your asses now." Hinata smiled and blushed slightly, glancing briefly at Naruto before turning to face the two in front of them, her eyes brimming with resolve. Raven shouted, "Bring it on," and the 4 rushed forward. For the next hour, there was a steady flow of courses, jutsus, and explosions all around. Sasuke and Naturo simply sighed and kept looking at one another. As the head of the Hyusha clan started to say, "So you have a unique bloodline limit," Naturo gave a nod, "And you as well." With 3 crimson tomes and no pupil, Sasuke's eyes changed from jet black to pale lavender as he grinned and spoke, "Indeed." The two had clicked right away. Because of their similar personalities, they were able to relate to one another a little better than the others. "We'll have to spar sometime," Naturo remarked. Sasuke grinned, "Anytime." The 3 girls and 1 fox came back at this point. Yugito was gleefully picking her teeth with a fishbone. Akira had a big basket full of fish on her back, her fox had a huge fish in its jaws, and Isaribi appeared hesitant to acknowledge that she had assisted in capturing the fish, possibly due to her bloodline limit. "Hi guys." Yugito exclaimed, grinning. With hunger visible in their eyes, Naturo and Sasuke turned to face her and nodded slightly. The battle between Naruto, Hinata, Raven, and Tayuya abruptly ended, and the 4 of them returned to the camp with the appearance of having been through a lot. Tayuya was holding Raven's broken right wing in place while it healed. Sasuke would never grow accustomed to witnessing the red chakra emerge and mending broken limbs in real time. It was strange. Most likely as a result of the vibe the chakra produced. Evil, foul. The Kyuubi herself's chakra. And when he turned to face the 4, his eyes, which were still active, saw Raven's inner chakra and the bones mending in his wing in full, magnified. "Bout time. I'm starved." A beaming Tayuya said as she grabbed 3 fish with a smoke limb extension and quickly cooked them with a light fire jutsu before eating. It makes sense that Isaribi would turn green and turn away with a sickly expression. With a grunt, Naruto sat down to tend to his bruised shoulder, letting Hinata do so even though, like Raven, the wound was healing. Though he could do without the growl from the Kyuubi in his head, the blonde relished the attention the girl was giving him. Before the girl could blink, Raven himself had flown to Akira, caught 6 fish, and flown back to Tayuya. Like Tayuya, he quickly cooked the fish with heat before beginning to dig in himself and dropping his sides in the process. Yugito used her own fire jutsu to light the pile of logs and dried plants in front of them while she mumbled something about impatient siblings and their smoky girlfriends. She sighed in frustration and set the basket down in front of her. When the fire was large enough, everyone gathered and took the fish and sticks. They spent a significant amount of the night and the remainder of the evening together, growing closer to one another. The experience was positive. Naruto was fully aware of how Sasuke and Hinata got to Kumo, how they combined their bloodline limits, and how they had it implanted in a sizable number of orphans to form a new clan. In fact, Naruto was impressed by Kumo's ability to manipulate genes. The Shiyakugan appeared to be in excellent operating condition. No negative side effects appeared to be present. However, his ancestor's lover was Kumo's cage. She naturally picked up some knowledge from him. Still, he made a self-promise to see how the Hyusha clan was doing once his knowledge awoke, just to make sure there were no unanticipated consequences. Everyone started to unwind and settle in as night fell. After unfolding the Hikari scroll, Akira began studying. She loved the habit far more than her brothers did. To be honest, Naruto hadn't really looked at the scroll. He promised to make that change. After unwinding with his sister, Naturo began to read the scroll with her. Despite having the scroll for 5 years, they haven't even begun to read it all because there were so many secrets in it. Every time he thought about it, his head would spin because there were so many storage seals in that scroll, each one holding more scrolls or items. Furthermore, the majority of the words he had actually read in the scroll were far too difficult and perplexing for him to comprehend. However, he was a little irritated that Akira appeared to comprehend them. Because she refused to assist him, it was as if she enjoyed torturing him. Once, she did offer a useful hint. When your knowledge awakens, you'll understand it. However, how on earth did she manage to obtain it? The Kyuubi's answer was, girls are more intelligent than boys. Naruto frowned. I doubt you'd be saying that if you were a boy, so shut up. He nearly winced at the roar that followed that reply. Insolent brat. Naruto frowned. Naruto, you look mad, is something wrong? The sight of Hinata's pale eyes staring at him stopped his mental yell at the fox before it had even started. He saw that Sasuke appeared somewhat concerned as well, but Yugito and Naruto's friends just carried on with their activities. Not at all surprised. Naruto smiled. Nah, just yelling at the fox, nothing to worry about Hinata-chan. Hinata reddened. Is it wise to yell at the demon locked inside of you? Sasuke asked. Naruto gave a shrug. Damn annoying furball never shuts up and she always yells at me so I can yell all I want. Although it didn't appear particularly happy, Akira's fox did nothing. This was a common practice among these humans, and he was aware of the bond that existed between the Kyuubi and the boy she was trapped inside. They simply refused to acknowledge it. Sasuke dropped the topic despite not seeming particularly convinced. Naruto was the one. He has already correctly assumed that the boy was difficult to frighten in the brief time he has known the blonde. Even if she wasn't sealed, he would most likely scream at her. Even if it meant that he had passed away in a drool and a flash of teeth. With a giggle, Yugito sat down beside Sasuke and gave him a back pat. Don't worry, even if he yells at his demon, she's not going anywhere anytime soon unless she wants to die. Naruto gave a nod. Kyuubi smothered the fire with her smoke and said, okay, enough talk about demons and take your asses to sleep. Well, we're not all exhausted, Raven remarked. With a sigh, Kyuubi seized the boy by the neck and fell to the ground alongside him. Too bad for you, your wings are warm and I'm cold. With a sigh, Raven obeyed, using his wings to shield himself and his girlfriend. Sighed, yeah, it's probably smart to get some sleep. 'Cause I want to get to the hidden light as soon as possible. The others nodded in agreement, and Naruto simply collapsed backwards while gazing up at the sky. Unaware that Hinata was a few feet away from him, he turned to watch her unrolling a sleeping bag. As she slid into her bed, she turned to him, blushing cutely and smiling shyly. It was, good night Naruto, she said. Naruto grinned. Good night Hinata. Not wanting to be too far away from Naturo, Isaribi settled down next to him. The manipulator of metal remained silent. He liked her company. The fish girl closed her eyes and put a hand on his arms before letting out a sigh of relief. Yugito joined her with a purr and a smile as Akira quietly rolled up the scroll and cuddled up to her fox. The camp fell into silence after a few more mumbled good nights. If you ignored the insults that Raven and Kyuubi whispered. Change of scene. The Sound's hidden village isn't your typical hidden village. More accurately, it is a collection of subterranean compounds. Nonetheless, it has all the necessary elements to be regarded as a secret village, including ninja, medical facilities, and a nation to occupy. All of this and more was present in Orochimaru's village, including a large number of rooms used for dreadful experiments. And she studied all of this in awe as Hanabi followed Orochimaru, one hand clutching his. Any other child would have been traumatized by some of what she witnessed, but Hanabi found it all to be so intriguing and novel. As a sheltered child, she was incapable of distinguishing between morality and cruelty, between death and fascination, and between right and wrong. Even as she witnessed a young woman wailing in pain as countless hooks and devices literally dissected and reassembled her in an attempt to understand how her particular body functioned. She simply smiled in awe of the new things around her, even as she passed cells with people who were either half dead, half starved, half alive, or mutated beyond recognition. She pointed to a massive water tube that contained an unconscious boy with blue skin and shark-like teeth and said, "Oro. Ni. San, what's that?" Kabuto was trying to contain his amused laughter at what he was seeing behind them. There had never been a girl like this in his life. She was so eager to experience new things that she was unable to recognize the obviously hostile environment she had entered. And his amusement increased as he studied the girl more. Orochimaru was constantly being questioned by Hanabi about the various experiments going on all around her. All she did was ask what was going on, even though she had used her Byakugan to see into some of the more private rooms. The girl's eyes widened at the speed, thoroughness, and honesty of Orochimaru's response. Kabuto was aware that, given some time, Hanabi would be willing to give Orochimaru her bloodline limit in return for knowledge and the freedom her family had denied her. Anyone could have laughed at it. Rather, he chose to support Kin and Kimimera's unconscious bodies on his shoulders. Orochimaru had his right hand in Manabi's and Haku over his left shoulder. The young Hyuga also made him laugh a lot and startle him a little. When he brought her here, he expected her to be terrified, but she was actually quite the opposite. Her insatiable curiosity captivated him. His experiments captivated the girl. She had resented Joe of them. In his mind, a plan started to take shape. Nobody, not even his closest friends and family, could bear to witness all of the atrocities that Otogakure no Sato harbored. Someone was always repulsed by something, regardless of who it was. This girl, however, was unique. Something in here ought to have terrified her to death, despite her innocence and her insatiable curiosity. He started to feel attracted to this girl. It's possible that he had at last located an apprentice. He would have to wait and see what would happen. When he reached a rather large steel door, he easily pushed it open. Kabuto and Hanabi followed him inside. A huge test tube containing Orochimaru's clone was connected to hundreds of glowing tubes and dozens of computers. With the exception of the faint burn marks on the glass, the body simply floated there unaffected by the surroundings. Even though its eyes were closed, Hanabi recognized it and grinned with delight. "It's you, Oro. Ni. Chan," she exclaimed with joy. "Kukakuku, yes. It's me, or rather, my clone. I plan to take that body and use it to gain supreme power and immortality." With innocence in her eyes, Hanabi looked up and giggled. "Oro. Ni. San what's I am, immortality." Orochimaru laughed as he always did. With a sadistic laugh. "To be immortal means to live forever, my love. I'm going to do that." Confused, Hanabi raised her head and declared, "I'll live forever too as well." She smiled broadly, and Orochimaru gave her a pat on the head and laughed. He then turned to face the area left of the test tube, where a cage with 5 people sleeping in it looked pathetic, dressed in rags. 2 females, a young brunette woman still recovering from her injuries, a girl of about 15, an older man, a young man, and finally a boy of about 6. Orochimaru chuckled and tapped the bars once, and the cage door opened. He said, "Kukakuku wakey wakey," and 5 pairs of eyes opened at once. The boy squirmed in terror, the young woman winced, the girl glared, and the older man lunged before the snake Sanin kicked him back. Now that's not a polite way to greet your master," he smirked and reprimanded. The older man sneered and then gasped when he saw Hanabi. "Oh my god, you did it, then. You really are a monster." Hanabi scowled. "Don't call Oro. Ni. San name's Mini." The man flinched back as though he had been struck. Orochimaru laughed once more. He placed a hand on the top of her head and said, "I was as surprised as you, old man. But this girl is different. She has a true seeker's spirit." He dropped to his knees and threw Haku into the cage. After throwing Kin and Kimimaro inside, Kabuto said, "And I found 3 more guests for you all." Hanabi had a worried expression. Concerned for the 3 who had taken the time out of their day to play with her, she asked, Are they gonna be alright?" Orochimaru smiled comfortingly. With a slight smile, the girl said, "They will be fine, Hanabi. Chan." As the other cage occupants repositioned the 3 into more comfortable positions, she expressed concern for them. This made Hanabi much happier. "I'll tell you what, Hanabi. Chan. You can come visit them whenever you want." "I will." As Orochimaru and his friend led the heiress to the Hyuga clan away, the elderly man with the chakra laser eye bloodline limit could only watch with sorrow. He couldn't stop the tear from falling from his eye as he could already see that Orochimaru had her in his grasp. He glanced at the 3 new visitors below. Of course, they were also bloodline users. However, they were connected to the girl. How are they going to react to this? He replied. The others simply watched with sadness. The first to wake up was Haku. The angle at which he was sleeping was causing his back to hurt and his forehead to throb. His mind was disoriented and his eyes were blurry at first. His eyes widened and his mind quickly recovered as the memories suddenly returned like a huge flood. He yelled, "Orochimaru!" as he unconsciously struck out, making the young boy next to him gasp and back away. When Haku realized there was no snake signing, he took a few deep breaths to calm himself. He was no longer even in the clearing in the forest. In a room with an old light hanging from the ceiling and the pale green glow of a large tube full of liquid, he realized he was in a cage of some kind. What happened? Where am I? Where are Kin and Kimimaro? He asked himself. What had taken place? He was unaware. Just before he and his teammates charged with the intention of destroying, Orochimaru had mentioned something about their bloodline limits. The sudden touch of a hand on his shoulder snapped him out of his reverie. The dark blue eyes of a girl he did not recognize, who was about his age, met his startled gaze as he spun around so quickly that he might have given himself whiplash. Haku noticed her attire and physical state right away as she simply stared at him and him at her. She appeared to be recuperating from a pretty vicious altercation. A few of the wounds appeared to be infected. He observed that her eyes gleamed with an unusual degree of intelligence and that her hair was a blue that seemed brighter and purer than the sky itself. "It's okay," she uttered, her voice hoarse due to injury or lack of use. She pointed to her left and behind her, where the boy who had earlier screamed was standing over the unconscious bodies of Kin and Kimimaro, his palms extended, and said, "Your friends are being tended to." As hundreds of black threads sprang from the boy's hands and quickly stitched the two together, Haku could only watch in wonder. As they healed his two friends, the tentacle-like threads appeared to dance in their own breeze and gave off a gentle golden glow. Haku was forced to ask, "What is that?" The girl grinned. "His name is Kazumari. He's from the waterfall country and that's his bloodline limit. He calls it serpent thread." Haku hadn't noticed them yet, but the girl pointed to the other people who were inside the cage. 3 more were present. They were all looking at him. While the woman, who was about 20 years old, watched with concern, the elderly man watched with interest. The young man appeared to be the most circumspect. "Hello," the elderly man said. "My name is Koru." Unsteadily, the woman stood up and made a small, formal bow. This action gave Haku the impression that she came from a wealthy family. After a few seconds of staring, the young man grunted, "Name's Kazaryu," and turned away. "I am Shiroya." Koru, the elderly man, laughed. "Don't mind him. He's a paranoid street punk." With a, "Up yours you old geezer," Kazaryu said. Grinning, the girl with the blue hair extended a hand. "And my name is Hanadeko. It's nice to meet you." Kin and Kimimaro awoke at that moment. Neither was in any better condition than Haku himself. Fortunately for Kazumari, they saw Haku before they passed out and hurried to his side. Fearfully, Kin asked, "Haku, what happened? Where are we?" Kimimaro appeared uneasy as well. Anxiety was causing his eyes to dart back and forth. Haku gave a headshake. "I'm not sure. It seems we were captured by Orochimaru." Both of his friends tensed. "That's right," Koru said. He gestured to the sizable test tube in which Orochimaru's clone was just barely visible floating, saying, "You are currently trapped in a cage deep underground in his most precious lab." The eyes of Kin, Haku, and Kimimaro grew wide. "He plans to use you 3 for a sick experiment, one that will push his power up beyond what any normal human is capable of." Kimimaro questioned, "And he plans to use our bloodline limits for this?" The elderly man gave a nod. "Hi. Orochimaru has become obsessed with them as they can produce jutsus no one else can ever learn or copy. He finds that unacceptable. There should be no jutsu he can learn, so he's rounding up everyone with bloodline limits and using them to alter the DNA of that clone in there." Hanadeko turned around and revealed the back of her head at this point. When the 3 of them saw the enormous hole, which was 3 inches across and rimmed in coagulated blood, they all gasped in horror. "Oh Kami," Kin cried, covering her mouth with a terrified hand. The girl with blue hair let her hair fall back over the hole and nodded peacefully. She lifted her hand and caused the cage they were in to rise a few feet off the ground before lowering it. "My bloodline limit is actually rather simple. The power lies in my brain and in my mind. The stronger they are, the stronger I am. Telekinesis and mind reading, the purest branch of mental abilities passed down through the blood." They gazed in astonishment and awe. "We are scattered throughout the world. There are very few of us left. We are very rare." "Amazing," Haku remarked. With a slight flush, Hanadeko turned shyly to the ground. When it was his turn to speak, Koru chuckled and puffed out his chest a little. His eyes grew red and glowed as he gazed at Haku, Kin, and Kimimaro. I come from a small clan near the border of the Earth Country, he said. The glow in his eyes grew stronger, and to the complete surprise of the three of them, he blasted 2 blue beams of chakra straight past them, scorching the wall across the room. I cannot tell you how long we've been around, only that I'm probably the last one left. Chakradongan, or rather chakra projectile eye. I can focus chakra into my eyes and release it through them at will. The level of power depends on the person and the level of chakra your body possesses. The less intense your lasers, the weaker you were considered. He then rested his eyes and raised his arms across his chest. People also called them laser eyes in good humor because they hated saying Chakradangan. The 3 newcomers remained silent, still trying to come up with a cohesive idea. And then there was actually one guy who had so much chakra he could release massive blasts capable of leveling a city block. A prodigy he was. Haku, Kimimaro, and Kin all gasped. Kazaryu turned to them with a grunt. Quite bluntly, I ain't a ninja, he declared. But my ability gave me the power needed to be able to face most of them. He cringed as a picture of Orochimaru flashed through his mind. The boy's hair started to fade, and Haku, Kin, and Kimimaro watched in fascination. It was as though the hair was being bleached until it was entirely clear. Then his lower legs and feet started to fade, as did his hands and forearms. They sensed it just before they asked what his could do. At first, it was faint and hardly perceptible, but then it became more intense. Something was in the air, touching them and moving with it. They were taunted by what seemed like hundreds of tiny marbles rolling along their bodies. Kazaryu grinned. They gave me my name because I was said to have been blessed by the Dragon of Wind when I was born. Obviously that's a load of crock, and I'm the descendant of an extinct, nearly extinct clan. Haku turned around when he felt a hand grab his shoulder, but nothing was there. I've also been called a ghost in human flesh. Hey, as sweet as that would be, I'm not that either. In the center of the cage, a tiny tornado briefly came to life before fading away once more. Smiling, he stood up and remarked, in fact, control of the wind is just a secondary byproduct of my actual ability. The 3 could only stare in awe as he pretended to be climbing stairs and then remained there as if he had. He climbed 6 more steps until he was finally stopped from climbing any higher by the top of the cage. I don't have a name for it, nor do I need a name. All you need to know is that I am able to control the molecules in the air. I can condense them to a point of solidness, and I can disperse them to a point to where there are actually gaps in the air completely devoid of oxygen. I can steal breath, give breath underwater, and yes, in space I'm sure. And by moving massive amounts of them at the same time I can recreate the action of commanding the wind. My ability is a very powerful one. And I still don't know how that fucking snake bastard managed to overcome me. Koru retorted, he's the snake Sanin, you arrogant whelp. Of course he'd be able to overpower a civilian with a blood limit. Up yours, you old geezer. Kazaryu glared as Koru laughed and waved dismissively, but the woman stepped a little closer to the 3 and bowed once more before he could respond. Hello, she said, bowing formally. As you are aware, my name is Shiroya. This is my Keke Genke, and I'm 25 years old. A single wing also grew from her left shoulder, glowing and transparent, and Haku's eyes widened as she extended her hand and focused chakra into it. A moment later, there was a huge flash of light, and a sword made of pure light was in her hand. The Tenshi Hikaru is the name of it. With the exception of my mother, I am the last member of the clan to possess this blood limit, the remains of a war that wiped them all out. Or so I was told by my parents before they were killed by Orochimaru. Kin was unable to contain her amazement. It's beautiful. Kazaryu scoffed, but the others wholeheartedly concurred with Kin's assertion. Shiroya thanked Kin with a small bow and deactivated her bloodline limit before returning to her seat. Koru crossed his arms and sighed. It looks like the snake is closer to creating his perfect body, what with obtaining 4 more bloodlines. Kin, Kimimaro, and Haku all gasped at this point and spoke in unison. Hanabi. That the name of the little Hyuga girl who was acting like the snake was her hero? Kazaryu snorted and inquired. What? Hanadeko sighed sorrowfully. She didn't want to tell these 3, but she was forced to. I think, she said first, it's best if I showed you what he means. Waking, Hinata, Raven, and Tayuya all woke up the following day with a loud yawn and a smile on their faces. 2 of them complained quite harshly and gave the blonde a heated look, while the other just blushed slightly and said, Good morning, Naruto. Naruto yawned again and smiled as his muscles stretched and his lips smacked 3 times. He chuckled to himself as he observed his group members who were still asleep, pointing out that Isaribi was practically lying on top of Naturo and that Yugito and Akira were cuddled up to each other like a kid and a kitten, with the big two-tailed fox protecting them. Slumped against a tree, Sasuke was snoring softly. "Wake up!" he yelled. In an instant, Yugito, Naturo, and Sasuke leapt to their feet. Akira and Isaribi were then violently thrown to the ground as a result. It goes without saying that they also woke up. Before continuing, Naruto paused for a few seconds to allow everyone to get their bearings. "Okay guys, we got a lot of ground to cover. We're gonna have to move fast, alright?" It was accurate. They still had a long way to go and were only just inside the Lightning Country border. "Right." Hinata grinned as Raven gave a fictitious salute. He shouted, "Aye boss," and Kyuubi slapped him in the head, which prompted him to slap her in the head as well. She screamed, "Hey! Ass wipe, what the fuck was that for?" A second later, Raven was in her face, glaring at her. "You know what it was for, you Banshee. You wanna repeat that, bird brain? Hey, are you deaf or what? Your eardrums turned to smoke and float away?" Up until Raven embraced the girl and she gave him a frown and a flush in return. Kyuubi appeared homicidal, and Sasuke, Yugito, and Hinata appeared concerned that a fight would start. "Jimorn Yuya-chan," he said, his heart bursting with love. When Kyuubi actually sputtered and knocked his winged brother upside the head, Naruto laughed. "Who the fuck is Yuya-chan, asshole? Don't ever refer to me as something like that again." "Ah, but it suits you, Yuya-chan. Act, okay. Hinata almost let out a squeal. She said, "You're so adorable." Naruto laughed aloud. Then he gave a dramatic sigh and said, "Yeah, it's been that way for a while between those two. Ah, young love. Kids these days grow up so fast." Kyuubi exclaimed, "I'm older than you, dick." Naruto laughed. "And you're dating my brother who is only 5 years old. What's that say about you, you pedo?" Raven laughed and wrapped his wings around Kyuubi as she began to splutter once more. Kyuubi went on to create a new shade of dark red and said, "Don't worry, Yuya-chan, I've always liked older women anyway." "All women are older than you," Naruto said in a deadpan tone. "Exactly." Naturo muttered, "My siblings are idiots," and Akira nodded her head, although she appeared amused. Isaribi appeared somewhat taken aback. Does this happen a lot?" Naturo shrugged as he glanced at her. "Every morning." Sasuke looked flat and emotionless. "You hid your true nature from us back in Kumo. You're all a bunch of goofballs." "Oh, that was because of the whole Ancestors Scroll, DNA knowledge, 4th Hokage's offspring situation. No time for goofing off back there, ya know?" Yugito gave Sasuke a playful shoulder punch after he appeared uncertain for a moment. Looking at the people in Naruto's group, she said, "Oh, relax, you stick in the mud, sheesh. So we're heading out, are we?" The blonde grinned. "Yep, the Hidden Light Village is pretty far away from her, so we got a bit ways to go, but before then we gotta stock up on some supplies and whatnot." The others agreed with a nod. As the vision vanished from his thoughts, Haku flinched in horror and shock. Muted, N.No, "It can't be," he said. "Not Hanabi. Don't be Hanabi." However, he was unable to deny what he had witnessed or the complete lack of surprise he experienced upon seeing it. They had the same feeling as they looked at Kin and Kimimaro. Hanabi was desperate for freedom and attention. There was no way to know when the Hyuga girl would act to obtain it if Orochimaru were to offer it to her. Additionally, Hanabi would never do anything to annoy Orochimaru if he truly made an effort to ensure that she felt valued, cared for, and wanted. She wouldn't hesitate to give up her eyes. Starting with, "What will you do?" Koru said. "If the girl becomes an enemy molded by that snake and fully willing to end your lives." The trio considered it. Hanabi was unfamiliar to them. Even though they had only been with her for 1 day, they had already bonded. How would they maintain the bonds they had established with Hanabi? "I don't know," Haku said pitifully, and he didn't.
So that's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe to the channel for more awesome stories like this. Thank you. See you all in my next video.